Yeah. And this place is one of that. On the other side of 46, so it's. You take care of that too.
All right, I think I see.
I'll get some feedback too, Chad. I don't know if you want to mention it. Use their microphones.
If you are online virtually and you are not muted, please do so at this time. I would be grateful as can be. Okay, commissioners, I see our team is here. We've got a couple in-house. Mr. Wilson, you're remote. Mr. Montplaisir, maybe. Mr. Mike, there's Mr. Montplaisir. Okay, whole team's here. All right, rock and roll. Commissioners, you ready? Heather?
Yep.
Ready? Okay.
Yep.
With that, yikes, I will call the October 12th, 2020 Cass County Commission meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Peterson?
I'm here.
Steen?
Yes.
Pollock?
Here.
Sherling?
I'm here.
Brightling?
Yes. All right, we have a quorum. Thank you, everyone. With that, we will have the Pledge of Allegiance. Ms. Warden, if you'd lead us, those watching virtually, please look at a flag at your house.
Pledge allegiance to the flag, the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, a nation under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
Commissioners, presume we had a chance to review prior meeting minutes. If so, look for a motion to approve or amend, please. Move to approve. Is there a second, please? Second. Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Any discussion? If not, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Order of the agenda. We don't have any amendments that I'm aware of. So we'd look for a motion to approve the agenda as presented. Mr. Chair, move to approve the agenda. Christine, thank you. Is there a second, please? Second. Moved and seconded. The order of the agenda be approved as presented. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. 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 Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Consent agenda. Again, presumably we had a chance to review our consent agenda as presented, A through G. Now looking for a motion to approve, or we need to discuss or amend.
Motion to approve.
Is there a second, please? Second. Moved and seconded. The consent agenda be approved as presented. Any discussion on the motion? Any discussion on the motion? Any discussion? If not,
I have a question.
Commissioner Brightling, yes.
What is the Center for Tech and Civil Life?
A grant for COVID expenses for the election, or election equipment, grant fund.
Good stuff. Any other questions? Trying to figure out, getting some backfeed between this mic.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on.
It's not happening for anyway. Any other discussion? If not, roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Brightling?
Yes.
Peterson?
Yes.
Steen?
Yes.
Pollock?
Yes.
Sherling?
Yes.
Motion passes. Thank you. Now is the time we have for public comment. Anyone on the line, if you know one in the room wanting to comment. Anyone online virtually wanted to make any comments regarding anything not on the agenda? If so, now is the time to address your commission. Don't see anyone virtually scrambling to the microphone. All right, with that, wait, I got one more. Okay, wonderful. With that, we'll move on to our regular agenda. Thank you, everyone, of course, everyone for attending, everyone virtually attending and paying attention. Regular agenda, item 1, Property Tax Incentive for Enclave Development. Mr. Gilmore, I don't know if I saw you on, but if you're on, Mr. Gilmore.
Actually, I think Mike Redlinger is filling in for him today.
Is it Mike Redlinger? I don't know that I see Mr. Redlinger either.
Mr. Chair, this is Robert. My understanding was that Mr. Redlinger was going to sit in on the meeting. Mr. Gilmore is out today, but as you are aware, you've got a consideration of a motion before you to participate in the request for a tax increment finance district in the city of Fargo, submitted by Enclave Development for new housing on property located southeast of Oak Street and 6th Avenue North for up to a 15-year period.
Do we have any owners representatives here? And I'm not seeing any either.
Yes. Yep. Austin Morris, Enclave Development.
Austin, I don't see you, but I believe that you're here because I can hear you. You have the podium, sir. Let us know what you're up to, please.
Okay, so this development is unique in nature and the location. The site has been in multiple different hands since 2002 with no development progress on it over an 18-year period because the site has a number of constraints and challenges associated with it. So we have a site that has a tremendous soil correction required to do anything on it. I've never encountered in 10 years of enclave, I've never encountered a soil correction of this magnitude on any of our sites, frankly. And additionally, it has a levee that's required to be constructed to finish the floodway protection for the Oak Grove neighborhood. There was about, according to city records, there's about 40 different houses within this protection area that ended up unfortunately going away because there wasn't flood protection. This levee that's required to be constructed by this development to finish it off would provide additional flood protection for this area and also allow this site to be developed. Jesse Craig, I think he's also on the line, has worked on this development for a number of years and has worked with the neighborhood, the Oak Grove neighborhood, over a number of years to figure out what we could do here that not only would be contextually proper within a community of single-family residences. And we think that we've landed on something that, although very difficult to make work financially, it's been a labor of love the last 12 months to figure out how we could not only get additional residential housing from a rental perspective in this area to further support and bolster the schools, but also as a goal with the neighborhood, the neighbors would like to see additional home ownership opportunities within the Oak Grove neighborhood. So we added 14 for sale homes on the top floor of the proposed development. And as we navigated through the TIF process, the city engaged third-party financial advisor to advise the city on whether or not this development could work without the support of TIF from city and county and public school system. And their report, which you guys have a copy of, and the city also received a copy of, passed the but-for test from the standpoint of without city county support, this project would not be possible. I think the evidence that this site is impossible without looking at the future tax value as the benefit for the city and county, looking forward and looking at the $25 million valuation in 15 years as I guess a bolstering of the city's tax base long term, rather than looking at this site as a short-term opportunity. So in the end, based on our financial analysis, even with full city and county support from a TIF standpoint, we are barely scraping by 4% cash on cash return. I think we were at around 5%. And over a first few year period, we don't meet, even with TIF support, we don't meet proper debt service coverage until year 2 or 3 to even be considered for financing based on the analysis we've done in the market study we've done on the for sale residences. So we're here today to answer any questions you guys have. We feel like we did really a fantastic job of listening to the neighborhood, listening to the community needs, and producing a project that fits well within the neighborhood. that offers for sale residences as well as quite a few rental housing opportunities. Finishes a levee construction that will allow further catalytic development within the Oak Grove neighborhood. And also clean up a site that's been underutilized, undervalued, and something that doesn't produce accretive tax revenue for the city since 2002. But after 18 years of work from 3 different owners, as well as Jesse and now us, that we have a solution here for the county and city's consideration to move this project forward and produce something that's a fantastic addition to our community.
Wonderful. Any questions?
Any questions for our owner? I don't know, Mr. Craig, if you're on, if you want to speak first before questions, or?
I am on. I can answer any questions if anyone has any.
Okay, any comments, Jesse?
No, I think Austin, kind of covered everything. In a nutshell, the biggest thing that he hit on that I was ready to talk about was the fact that that site cannot be developed or nothing built on it unless that levee is completed, and the levee can't be completed until the soil is remediated underneath it. So there's quite a few layers of issues there just for that site that was east of the alley before the alley was vacated. So there are quite a few, like Austin said, quite a few constraints with that, but no, just Austin did a really good job. Appreciate his involvement in this and him stepping up for the last 12 months to try to get this thing over the final hurdles and get something started on the project. The only other thing is, I think, if people look at the tax value or the taxable amounts on the land there now, those have gone up by about probably ×5 versus when I first bought that land, because as the land's been approved and alleys vacated and stuff like that, the county and the city have assessed that at a higher value. So, back in the day, that entire block was probably around $6,000 to $8,000 in tax revenues coming off of it. Now it's about $22,000.
Wonderful. Commissioner Sherman, I see you have your hand raised.
Thank you. What would be the asking price for those condos?
Sorry,
Austin, go ahead.
Yeah, they range in price, so we tried to get some in the price point of the low 300s, and then they go up to an average price in the 400s. And then we have one that just happened to work out based on its location and where it worked out with hallways. We have one larger unit that has to achieve $700,000 from a sale price in order to make our financials work. So that's the one reach that I think is a big risk factor here, is that the condo units literally carry the deal even with TIF.
And so under your scenario here, at what point would those condo owners be paying property taxes?
So the condo owners, from a property tax standpoint, my assumption, Jesse, you can chime in, my assumption was that after the Renaissance zone, that the condo owners on their condos would be paying real estate taxes, and the rental residences wouldn't pay real estate taxes until the TIF was fully exhausted, which, if it's a 15-year period, most TIFs that I've seen, I think the average is about 11 or 12 years where it ends up the TIF being eaten up by the real estate tax assessment on an annual basis.
So just so I understand, so the condo owners would be getting Renaissance waivers for 5 years?
Yeah, the 5-year period, and then they would pay real estate taxes.
And those real estate taxes would be 100% at that point?
Yep.
Thank you.
Any further questions for our owners? If not, I see Mr. Redlinger jumped on. Mr. Redlinger, you have any comments, sir?
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. I apologize for the connection issue to get in and join the meeting, but just from the city of Fargo, thank you for your consideration of the item today. As Mr. Gilmore covered in his memo to the county commission, this was taken up at a recent Fargo City Commission meeting, and previously our tax exempt review committee also reviewed the proposal, and we're obviously supportive. Happy to answer any questions that your group might have, but I think that there are some pretty key aspects, as noted in Jim's memo, in the deal that are really exciting, for the city and for this particular neighborhood, and this better utilization of vacant and really underdeveloped property at present that will really turn into a nice gem once developed. So we're just appreciative of the support. Enclave and Jesse have invested here and their interest in this property, and happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Redlinger. Commissioners, any questions for our representative from the city? All right, with that, we've heard from our owners, we've heard from the city. Commissioners, your thoughts? Commissioner Steen.
Sure, thank you. Just had the opportunity to meet with a couple of the developers and went over some of the numbers, that type of thing. And, obviously it's a great project for the neighborhood, and very much in favor of the project itself. A couple of things we noted in discussion, was the price of the project, and is there any way to trim costs off the project itself, and to reduce, basically the cost, improve the debt service coverage ratio and the returns, and had that discussion. When I look at the TIF request, I think if I did this right, it's about $790,000 total from the county. If you go over the 15 years, if you go through the first 5 years, the ask is about $243,000, and the first 10 years there'd be about twice that, basically about a little over $500,000. So again, I think we should support the project. I'm not a fan of 15-year TIFs for housing or for any project for that matter, but I do have feel we should support it to some extent.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioners, any other thoughts? Discussion, a motion? It's my understanding, Mr. Redlinger, correct me if I'm wrong, it's my understanding the City Commission is going to take this up tonight?
That is correct. I believe this is on our agenda this evening, correct?
Okay, thank you. Sure. Commissioner Steen, looking at the information that PFM provided and the returns, that type of thing, I think the issue there really has to do with the first 5 years of the project as far as making debt service coverage, et cetera, et cetera. So I think it'd be prudent, it'd be a project that the county should feel comfortable supporting for the first 5 years of the TIF. Is that a motion? That's a discussion item. Not a motion, discussion item. Okay, commissioners, your thoughts? Commissioner Brightman?
I tend to agree with Commissioner Reach.
I can jump in here too. I agree. I think there's a cost to greenfield development, and that's what we often forget, and that's what our friends and neighbors often forget, that when we build a brand new building in the middle of a brand new field, there's a lot of brand new things to go with it: roads, infrastructure, law enforcement, fire protection, as well as all the accessory items that get developed along with that. So the urban sprawl phrase rings true, and I think that we have to account for that. I'm always positive towards infill projects. I'm always positive towards projects like this, and I think aesthetically it's a wonderful looking building. I'm glad, so two things. First of all, I'm glad they listened to the neighborhood, because I know through speaking with Mr. Craig and his team that they have invested a great deal of time, far more than a lot of developers in town, in engaging with that neighborhood. And that's a positive thing. That's an amazing thing. That's a wonderful thing. And then item two, them listening to the fact that I think Commissioner Sherling, not to put you on the spot, but specifically you, and I know I have too, have addressed the need for purchases rather than just rentals. And I think that's incredibly important, because while there's a need for our plus or minus 55-ish% of our population, I believe, are in rentals, and there's a reason for that. We have a lot of college kids, and we have a lot of younger families, but I also love the idea of them building purchases. So That's a benefit to that neighborhood long-term because you instantaneously have stability. No one moving in and out when your entire upper floor is occupied by people that buy it, plus the townhomes will be developed along the corner as well. I think it's a wonderful project. But again, as Commissioner Steen said, I'm struggling with the 15 years as I always do. But I do think we'd be remiss in our duties if we didn't support it to some degree. And I've sort of elected the 5 years in the past, and I'm sort of comfortable with that, be it Renaissance, be it a project like this. So that's where my comfort level is. With that, I'll stop. Commissioners, any further thoughts? See Commissioner Pollock leaning forward.
Well, are you proposing a 5-year or a 5-year no tax and 5-year graduated tax?
Commissioner, I'm not proposing anything, but I do a 5-year no and then full after that. That's just me.
That would be my thought as well.
Okay. Any further discussion? Questions, concerns, a motion? Commissioner Steen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't have this written down, but I would move that Cass County participate in the TIF district years 1 through 5.
Is there a second, please?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion on the motion? Any discussion? If not, roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Sherling?
Yes.
Brightling?
Yes.
Peterson?
Yes.
Steen?
Yes.
Pollock?
Yes.
Motion passes. Thank you to everyone online attending virtually, our builders that are willing to take a risk, our city that's willing to endorse this, I'm guessing as well, if not exponentially more than we just have. So thank you to all those involved. Item 2 on our agenda, review approval city Western Cass County Joint Water Resource District, Mr. Dodds. And for those of you online virtually and those of you in the room, we can remove item C as that item has been resolved, correct, Mr. Dodds?
That's correct.
So item C is resolved, so we just have A, B, D, and E. I would have had our agenda amended, but I didn't know till the last minute here. So A, B, D, and E, Mr. Dodds, I think we should proceed in the same manner as we have in the past. A brief overview of what we're up to, just in case we have some friends that are visiting. We have some owners representatives. Are there any owners representatives online?
I don't believe so, although it might be good to know if there are any.
There are a number of phone numbers.
Okay.
So if you are an owner or owners representatives, please, once Mr. Dodds gets done, let us know as we go through. Just announce yourself. We always want to hear from our owners and make sure we have your input included here too. So in the past, in case Mr. Dodds, we know the drill by now, run through the basics of it, and then maybe Mr. Fredericks, same thing as before. I see him on. Quick, brief summary of what we're up to, and then we can proceed. How's that sound, Mr. Dodds?
Sounds great.
Outstanding. You have the comm, sir.
Okay, thank you, Chairman and Commissioners, for having us once again here tonight. On your agenda, there are 4 separate action items related to 2 separate families, the Liebrich family and the Loberg family. So we'll get to that in a minute. As you may recall, just by a brief introduction, the Cass County Joint Board is one of the members of the Diversion Authority. Cass County Joint Board has the responsibility to acquire property rights necessary for the project, and they've been doing that with a system in place of hiring both qualified appraisers as well as land agents, professional land agents that are responsible for presenting offers and negotiating with those property owners. Virtually with us today, we have Ken Helvey with SRF and Pat Roberts with ProSource. Those 2 gentlemen have been working with the property owners on your agenda tonight. In our process, we do an appraisal on every property. The appraiser establishes the fair market value. We make that offer, informally negotiate for a period of time, following all the statutes laid out in front of us that I think Sean can summarize here in a minute. Ultimately, we go through those steps, and one of the steps, if we're unable to reach a resolution, is the Cass County Joint Board requests to be on your agenda and requests that you invite the property owners to the meeting. So that has happened, and now in front of you, I guess, is the request from the Cass County Joint Board asking for permission or authorization to utilize what's called quick take eminent domain. This is statute that was revised in the 2017 legislature. And I guess we've been following that statute. I think tonight the goal is to summarize these properties, summarize how we followed that statute, and ask for your blessing. Maybe now is just a good time. I know Dan Jacobson is on the video with us as well. I think Dan shared some thoughts with you in the past. But Sean, maybe if you wanted to add just a few points about the legislation and the statutes that we are following.
Okay, Mr. Jacobson, then Mr. Fredericks. Jacobson, you answer?
Thank you, Commissioner Peterson. Yeah, I'd just like to give you some appreciation of working with us on this process. It's not easy, but we are making some progress, and we hope we get some continued support from the commissioners. Thank you.
Appreciate your time and effort, sir. I know this isn't the easiest thing to do in the world, so thank you much. Mr. Fredericks, your thoughts, sir?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As the commission has heard on several occasions in the past, I just want to do a quick rundown of the statutes and where the county commission is left here today and your charge here today. As you'll recall, in 2017, the North Dakota legislature modified the quick take process for water resource districts in North Dakota, created a fairly lengthy process, and inserted county commissions into the water resource district process, and I'll just get to that in just a moment. What the legislature did is they created a fairly lengthy process. What they were trying to do is to ensure that landowners were afforded a sufficient opportunity to negotiate with water resource districts before a water resource district could actually utilize quick take eminent domain. Evidently, some entities around the state, not necessarily water resource districts, but some other entities, were rushing to quick take, and the objective by the legislature was to ensure that landowners are afforded sufficient opportunity to negotiate in a reasonable and meaningful way. The process, like I say, is fairly lengthy. It requires an informal negotiation process, 60 days, and a fairly lengthy formal negotiation process with a number of letters, invitations to meet with the board. I think you'll find from the submissions by the Cass County Joint Water Resource District, including the land agent affidavit and the affidavit of Chairman Jacobson, along with the contact logs and negotiation logs from the land agents, the Cass County Joint Water Resource District has followed the process to the T, and the landowners in each case are certainly afforded more than adequate opportunities to negotiate with the Cass County Joint Board. Because we're here today does not necessarily mean that we don't agree on everything. In most cases, it simply means that the landowner doesn't agree at value. The charge of the county commissions, as you know, is not necessarily to step into the negotiating chair for the Cass County Joint Board. Instead, your sole charge is to ensure that the Cass County Joint Board can verify that we followed the requisite steps, the negotiation steps, in the course of each of these negotiations before we can request and before the county commission can consider our request to utilize quick take eminent domain. And again, the legislature's objective there is to ensure that the elected body that appoints the water resource district is comfortable that the joint board has afforded the landowners every opportunity to negotiate and that we've followed the requisite quick take eminent domain steps. And again, based on the submissions that you've received, I think you'll find that we most certainly have done that. One of the difficult pieces for county commissions, I think, in these situations is a lot of commissions believe that they are then required to review appraisals and give blessings to the offers, and that is not the case at all. Again, your charge is simply to ensure that we're following the process. You do not have to agree with the appraisal. You don't even necessarily have to agree with the final amount that the joint board has offered. You're not giving your blessing to our offer. And so I just want the landowners who might be present to understand that the objective of the county commission here today and your charge here today is not necessarily to agree with what we've offered or to agree with the appraisal, or for the county commission to litigate issues or to act, if you will, as a judge regarding any legal issues that any landowners might want to offer. Again, your charge is solely to determine whether or not the Cass County Joint Board can verify that we followed the steps. So again, just for landowners who are present, we're not here to negotiate with the county commission. The county commission doesn't even have to agree with our appraisal or with our offer. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I'll leave the table open for questions from you or any of the other commissioners.
Thank you, commissioners. Any questions? Any questions? If not, let's jump into item 2A. Mr. Dodds, please.
Sure. Item 2A on your agenda is OIN 698-9756, 9757, 9758, 9759. This is property owner Glenn Liebrecht. I don't believe any property owners are online, but if so, it'd be great to let us know. As you see in your packet here on page 5 is a map showing the parcels. As noted, these parcels are directly north of I-94, between I-94 and Highway 10. They are impacted by the diversion channel. And you can see that there's a railroad that goes through those parcels, as well as existing legal drain as well. And so kind of a complex area from a existing standpoint, and will be made even more complex because of the project and the construction work that needs to occur. In your packet on page 4 is a brief summary of the negotiations. You can see that we had an appraisal done. We've made an offer of about $1.7 million in change based on appraised value of about $7,400 per acre. There is some severance on the remainders as well. To date, we have not received a counteroffer from the property owner, but Ken has been continuing to work with them. They are working to get their own appraisal done, which in many instances that is a trigger for receiving a counteroffer. The affidavit and the contact log associated with the affidavit is on page 47 of your packet. You can see that some of the discussions with this property owner started back in 2017. Again, there was a period of sort of a put on ice with the injunction on the project, but in 2019, we resumed those conversations, and there's been steady dialogue since. I do know that Ken has recently spoken with the Liebrechts, and they are represented by legal counsel from Rinke Noonan as well. Just a quick note, the Liebrecht family also owns a few other parcels. That's part of item B on the agenda, so I'll cover that when we get there, but much of the discussions and the negotiations have centered around all of their parcels at the same time.
Mr. Dodds, one thing you said that caught sort of obscure is not received a counteroffer, but in the negotiation notes, I'm seeing owner seeking $18,000 an acre. So we're just looking for a formal counteroffer, and this is just something they mentioned in passing, or can you rectify those two?
Yeah, good. Yeah, thank you, Chairman and Commissioners. So it's maybe a sort of a slight nuance. The property owner has talked about $18,000 an acre. He has repeatedly requested that amount. Whether or not it's a formal counteroffer, I guess probably semantics in some regards. I don't believe we have taken any formal counteroffers to the joint board for their consideration. The $18,000 number has been kicked around, and we've discussed it at staff level meetings. Again, I don't believe that has been presented to the joint board. Ken, if you're online, if you want to just chime in or confirm if that's accurate.
Sure. Thank you, Eric. Yeah, that's accurate. The 18,000 has kind of been a discussion topic, but it's never been, I guess, offered as a counteroffer because the owner has always been seeking their own appraisal for confirmation on that. So.
And again, no, we're not here to negotiate the, but I just want to see if I can't figure out what's going on with those two items.
Yeah.
Commissioners, any questions? Comments, discussion?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Pollock.
Commissioner Pollock.
I move to authorize the Cass County Joint Water Resource District to utilize last resort eminent domain under section 6116.1-09, paragraph 2 of the North Dakota Century Code to take easement for right-of-way and temporary easements regarding OIN 698, 9756, 9757, 9758, and 9759.
Is there a second, please?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion on the motion? Any discussion on the motion? If not, Roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Steen,
Yes.
Sherling,
Yes.
Brightling,
Yes.
Peterson,
Yes.
Pollock,
Yes.
Motion passes. Item 2B, Mr. Dodds.
Chairman, Commissioners, on your agenda, item 2B is the Maryland Liebricht parcels, OAN 945, 9741, 9760. There's a packet of information related to these parcels which in front of you as well. The map for those parcels is on page 5. And you'll notice that 2 of the parcels are immediately north of the Glen Liebricht parcels we just got done discussing. They're also adjacent to the development. I forget the name of the development, but the development out there on Highway 10. And then one of the parcels is south of I-94 and south and west, south and east of the creek development. As similar fashion, we have the negotiating summary on page 4, identifies the appraised values. Again, we're in that sort of nuanced situation where we've talked about 18,000, haven't formally received a counteroffer from the property owners. One sort of nuance just to note here, the appraiser for 9741 considered that a full take. The appraiser considered that ag land is the highest and best use today, and the remnant of that was, had sort of nooks and crannies to it and odd shape, and from a farming practice felt like it would be challenging to continue farming that, and so they've advised that per the appraisal valuation, we should consider that as a full take. When it comes to an eminent domain action, Chris McShane is I believe advising that we would not necessarily need to take the remnant, and the property owner, underlying property owner may still want to retain that. So recognize we've been negotiating based on a full take, but when it comes down to what we actually acquire, we would pay the value of the full take per the appraised value, but not necessarily require the remnant there. And Chris may want to comment on that a little bit later. The land agent affidavit and the contact log is on page 34. Again, this is the same contact log that you saw for the previous property owner, listing all of the OINs as one family unit with the negotiations have been consolidated. With that, I would stand for any questions.
Question from Commissioner Pollock. You referenced the Sheldon levy in Raymond section 34, and I wasn't aware that the Sheldon levy was part of the federal project. So maybe I'm reading something into this, or what? You tell me.
Yeah, thanks, Commissioner Pollock. So the Sheldon levy is not part of the federal project. There's a small sliver of land between the diversion project and the Sheldon addition. That sliver of land will be used for building the Sheldon ring levy addition. That's a separate project that the Cass County Joint Board is working on with the residents from the Sheldon levy. If I recall right, they have already taken steps to do some type of assessment for that ring levy, and there was just a coordination of real estate efforts because we need land for both pieces, but the Sheldon levy is not part of the federal project.
But it is part of the last resort eminent domain proceeding, is that correct?
It is not part of the last resort eminent domain. If we acquire that land, Ken, you might need to help me, I guess, with the nuances of this. If we acquire that land, what we're acquiring is for our project. I believe that the Liebrichts have been advocating for that same 18,000 value for the Sheldon levy, but what we're acquiring is necessary for the diversion project.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioners, any further discussion? Questions, a motion?
I would move to authorize the Cass County Joint Water Resources District to utilize quick take eminent domain under section 61-16.1-09 subsection 2 of the North Dakota Century Code to take easements for right-of-way regarding OINs 945, 9760, and 9741.
Is there a second, please? Moving second, any discussion? Any discussion on the motion? Any discussion? If not, roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Pollock,
Yes.
Peterson,
Yes.
Steen,
Yes.
Sherling,
Yes.
Brightling,
Yes. Motion passes, and as a reminder, C has been stricken. For settlement, item 2D, request for immediate possession. Mr. Dodd.
Chairman, Commissioners, item 2D in your packet is the Lisa and Steve Loberg parcel, OAN 9199. As I mentioned earlier, this is related to item E in your packet. I will focus on item D first. In your packet, there is a map showing the parcel on page 7 of 46. As you can see, the map shows that there is a realignment of 38th Street. As 38th Street comes south off of I-94, goes past the Willow Creek development, it has to jog and cross over the diversion channel in a sort of tangential fashion, and then that road curves back to its original alignment. And so there's a roadway impact on parcel 9199. It's about 9.5 acres of impact. We've had that appraised. Our appraiser concluded rough farmland values of $5,900 per acre. And so the offer on that parcel is following the appraised value. We have had some counter offers from the property owner and from the representatives. They are represented by the Rinke Noonan law firm. The affidavit from the property owner similarly matches the land acquisition summary, which you see on page 4 and 5. The affidavit in their contact log is on page 42 of your packet. There was some suggestion that we might have a representative from the Lobergs on with us today. I'm not sure if anybody is on.
Do we have any owners or owners representatives on these parcels? Not seeing any.
Okay.
Oh. No, that's us internally. Nope, that's it. Mr. Dodds.
With that, I would stand for any questions.
Okay, commissioners, questions or comments? A motion, discussion? Commissioner Steen.
I move to authorize the Cass County Joint Water Resource District to utilize quick take eminent domain under section 61-16.1-09 sub 2 of the North Dakota Century Code to take an easement for a right of way and temporary easements regarding OIN 9199.
Is there a second, please? Second. Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? If not, roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Brightling,
Yes.
Peterson,
Yes.
Steen,
Yes.
Pollock,
Yes.
Sherling,
Yes.
Motion passes. Item 2E, Mr. Dodd.
Item 2E in your agenda is the Steve Loberg parcels, OAN 9738, 9739. You have a 40-page packet related to this property. You can see a map of the parcels and the impacts on page 7. You can see that the channel cuts diagonally through those two parcels, roughly consuming about 122 acres that we need in fee title. There's also a sliver of the road realignment on 9739 that consumes about a quarter acre of temporary construction easements. The appraisal was conducted back in early 2019. The offer was made based on the appraised value, again about $5,900 per acre plus some severance damages. Similar type negotiating, actually identical negotiating summary than what you saw in the last parcel. And the land agent affidavit is on page 36. That's also identical to what you saw on the previous parcel, given that we have one family unit, the negotiations have been consolidated. There has been represented by attorneys, and I believe that they are still working on negotiations and a counteroffer, but we don't have anything settled at this point. So with that, happy to take any questions.
Questions for Mr. Dodds, commissioners? If not, discussion, Commissioner Steen.
Motion, I move to authorize the Cass County Joint Water Resource District utilize quick take eminent domain under section 61-16.1-19 sub 2 of the North Dakota Century Code to take an easement for right of way and temporary easement regarding OINs set 9738 and 9739.
Is there a second, please?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion?
Point of order here from Commissioner Pollock.
Yes, sir.
This is the parcel for Lisa and Steve Loberg, correct?
This is the parcel for,
9199?
nope.
This is,
Okay. All right.
oh yeah, so Steve
Well,
Wilbur,
you're good. I'm bad.
okay. You're not bad, Commissioner Pollock. We all know that. Any questions or
Just wrong.
Any discussion on the motion? If not, roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Sherling?
Yes.
Brightling?
Yeah.
Peterson?
Yes.
Dean?
Yes.
Pollock?
Yes.
Wonderful. With that, motion passes, and item 2 is complete. Thank you to our team. Thank you especially to our landowners. I know they're not here, but we're grateful for the tumult they're having to go through. We're appreciative of their time, and we know it's not an easy thing for any one of us, particularly for them. So thank you much. Mr. Dodds, Mr. Fredericks, anything to add? If not,
Thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, members of the commission.
let's jump to item number 3, Mr. Benson. Speed limit change.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Over the last 5 years, between our road advisory meetings and other correspondence with residents, we've had a lot of discussions on raising the speed limits on our paved highways to 65 miles an hour. In 2003, the North Dakota legislature changed the law to authorize counties to increase the speed limit on their paved county roads to 65 miles an hour. Across the state, a lot of different counties have taken different approaches to that. In some cases, counties went immediately and said all of our county roads are going to be 65, and they posted them that way. Others, like Ward County, very similar number of paved roads, about 310 miles. They immediately put 240 into 65 mile an hour zones, and then others that didn't meet different safety standards, they left at 55. For Cass County, we've had ours remain at 55. And as we've gone through between public interest in increasing the speed limit and as vehicle safety or road safety, as we've done improvement projects on roads, we've identified 134 miles that I would recommend as candidates for increasing the speed limit to 65 miles an hour. And that's on those 134 miles are on a map that I provided, specifically Cass County 26 from the Barnes County line to I-29, Cass County 4 from North Dakota 38 over to I-29, Cass County 6 from North Dakota 18 to Cass 38, Cass 38 from State 46 north to I-94, and then Cass County 11 from Mapleton up to Cass County 4, and finally Cass 15 from Kindred down north to I-94. Following the July road advisory meeting where this was once again discussed, the road advisory committee requested some additional feedback from the public. So we reached out, did a public campaign, and had on our website a survey as well as the ability for residents to provide comments. Through that survey, we had nearly 1,700 people that were independent votes, of which nearly 97% were in favor of changing the speed limit. And I think most specific to this information was that we had the ability to gather information from residents in their comments. And for someone to provide comments, they also had to provide an email address. So we know that those are independent people providing those comments. We had 129 comments in favor of changing the speed limits and 12 opposed, and then another 12 that were neutral. With that, you know, again, when we look at different road segments, one of the things we looked at was sections of road that could be contiguous, so we didn't have a lot of start-stop. We look at the when we've done past traffic counts and what that 85th percentile speed limit is. 85th percentile is what, you know, that 85% of the people are traveling at that speed. And a number of these roads, or vast majority of these roads, people were traveling at that 60, 62, 63 miles an hour, close to 65. So, you know, our roads are safe. They're designed at, and I think in a lot of cases, you pull off of a state highway that's at the same, or in some cases, maybe a little bit less quality of highway from a safety and pavement standpoint, and turn onto our county road. You go from 65 to 55. You naturally, because of the roadway, the open right of way, the lack of development along those roads and obstructions, you feel safe and driving at those speeds. You know, it just falls in line with what we know, and that's why the recommendation on these roads. So with that, I'll take any questions that you may have.
Commissioners, any questions? Commissioner Steen.
Thank you. Just, you know, reading through the comments, the biggest concern was that I noted was on 26. I guess most of the comments related to 26. Even the neutral concerns had concerns about, or the neutral comments had concerns about 26. And so a question, and you hit on a little bit there, Jason, was, have we actually done speed studies on these roads to find out what people are actually doing in a 55? Do we know what they're actually traveling? I mean, you said 62, 65. So what speed do these people actually want to travel at? Not 65, obviously.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Steen. So there's different ways to look at it, but you know, I think in general, people are going to be driving what they feel they can, you know, safely drive. That is kind of human nature and analysis over the years. The Institute of Transportation Engineers, ITE, has done studies, and this 85th percentile is kind of a standard that if you set up roads, you know, if you've got highways that can handle much greater speeds and you have a much lower speed, you know, it can have safety concerns as well, because people are then driving above the speed limit and you have a variation in speed, you know, 5, 10, 15 miles an hour because someone is doing the speed limit versus someone that's driving faster. But generally, you know, like on the state highways that are 65, I'm sure there's a certain percentage of people that are driving in that 65 to 70. But you know, in some discussions I've had with some of the state engineering staff, that you know, they don't see a lot of people driving 75 on those, like a state highway 46 that runs from I-29 over to Kindred, Enderlin and beyond, because there's a certain limit on a 2-lane road that you feel safe. Similar to, you know, in Minnesota, there's a number of state highways that have gone to 60 miles an hour, even though they've got a lot more curves, a lot more trees and obstructions, lakes and access points. So on our county roads, we do have a lot of limited access points because, you know, our access ordinance limit quarter-mile spacing between those. We've got wider right-of-ways, better sight distance. And one thing, you know, like with CAS 26, recommendations are that you don't develop speed limits based on whatever the slowest point, so if you have a curve or a school zone or something that you would have a reduction in speed, you wouldn't set the whole segment at that. You would do a reduced speed limit through that certain segment, or have a like on a curve section where below the curve sign you'd have an advisory plate for this, maybe to drop it to a 55-mile-an-hour advisory plate for that curve, instead of having a start-stop, go to 55, go back up to 65, back down to 55.
Commissioner, Commissioner Steen, any further questions? I'll follow up. Commissioner Pollitt and Commissioner Brightling.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I had some, I received some comment from Argosville resident and about concerns there. But you said would go start at I-29 for the increased speed limit, but really it will start outside of the Argosville city limits. Is that correct?
Correct. Thank you for correcting me on that, Commissioner Pollock. Yes, it would start just a mile west of I-29 on the west edge of, just west of the Richwood Estates subdivision that's in the city limits of Argosville.
And it seems to me that that segment of road was probably rebuilt about 6 years ago.
Correct.
Right? And it's a beautiful highway. I mean, it's designed. It's a safe design, isn't it?
Commissioner Pollock, correct. That's got 4-foot paved shoulders, and it's got your standard 12-foot lanes, a 4-foot paved shoulder, and the much sloper. I think most of that segment has 5-to-1 in slope, so much more recoverable slope if you were to go off the edge of that road.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioners, any further questions? Oh, sorry, Commissioner Brightling. My apologies.
When I read the negative comments, they were centered around the fact that there's a school along 26 that services 5 communities, maybe even 6. Arthur, Brandon, Gardner, Argosville, and my understanding is with open enrollment, there are a lot of kids from the Harwood area also go to that school. People seem to think that there are a large number of juveniles using that road system, and that there was concern about that. What provisions have you made in that school zone for to start? And then secondly, the driving habits of the young people may be different. What consideration was given to that?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Brightling. So first, at that school zone, we have just in the last several years constructed new, up-to-date, modern warning lights as you approach, and those have a system that's monitored and controlled by the school administration. So during normal school year periods, those lights can be activated in the morning hours or in the afternoons, or if there's weather concerns where they're going to do an early release from school, they could activate those lights to to provide that additional alert for people driving. Even on a Friday night at a football game, on those types of special events, basketball games, those types of things, this school has the ability to control when those warning lights are turned on to support reducing that area and allowing for more safe access in and out of the school grounds. We do know that it is a combined high school, middle school, so there's a mixture of buses, and then a lot of rural students once they get 15, especially 16. Those sophomore, junior, seniors are driving their own vehicles, so we do know that that's going to be a little bit more prevalent on that segment between I-29 and State 18, whether it's people coming from the west from Hunter and Arthur or from the east off of I-29 from the Gardner, Grandin, Argusville, Harwood areas. But it's about 6 miles each direction, 6 to 8 miles either way to where that school is. It's fairly centered between I-29 and State 18.
And the speed limit in the school zone is what?
When it's flashing, it's down. It's 45, I believe. I'll have to double check that, but I'm pretty sure that we've got that set to where it's 45.
Thank you.
Any further questions, commissioners? Now, if you'll bear with me, I know this isn't a public hearing. Got commentary from a gentleman, Mr. Lovejoy, and I see you're on the line virtually. Wanted to give you a chance to comment regarding this. And again, it's not a public hearing. It's an issue we've been working on for a good part of 5 or 6 years. But I want to make sure you were heard. At least you had a chance to talk to the commission. So, Mr. Lovejoy, you have the microphone for a little bit. Let us know your thoughts, sir.
Thank you. First of all, I want to thank you for allowing me to speak to you guys today. I know it's not a public hearing, and you've gone on your way for that, and I really do appreciate it. And I want to echo the comments that Mr. Benson and Mr. I believe Pollock brought up about the fact that County 4 is a beautiful road. It actually is a very, very beautiful road. And that's some of my concerns is when, due to the condition of the road and everything like that, people started using it. Some of that started developing algorithms with GPSs. So now it's gotten to the point where people traveling south on I-29, intending to go west on I-94, have started to use County Road 4 and County Road 11 as a bypass, driving traffic down County Road 4 and in through Mapleton, North Dakota. This is pretty personal to me because I live on County Road 4. Every morning my children get picked up by the bus on County Road 4. Numerous times driving home from work, to and from work, vehicles, out-of-state plates, commercial trucks, they get off the interstate and they start trucking down County Road 4 thinking it's a 65-mile-an-hour zone. And they're riding your bumper, they're trying to pass you, and they're just driving in an unsafe manner. Obviously, there's always going to be local people that are speeding and everything like that, but we're not seeing from my view, I'm not really seeing that happen around here as much as we're seeing it from some of the out-of-state plates and things like that. I've been a police officer for 22 years. I sent you all an email today. It's pretty lengthy on a lot of my concerns and everything like that, and I appreciate it if you take a look at it at some point. But that email lays out most of my concerns, so I'm not going to bore you with that stuff again. But my biggest concern is the fact that this kind of came up as a surprise. And I talked to Mr. Benson today on the phone, and we had a great discussion about it. And my concern was that in speaking to just about every single one of my neighbors that lives along County Road 4 and down 11 into Mapleton, nobody knew about this. Nobody knew that this was happening. And Mr. Benson informed me that it was put out in the media, and I did search the Inform, and I did see an article that was at least on the Inform on the 19th of September, but I'm not sure if it actually hit the print. However, we have a lot of older community members here that either don't get the paper anymore due to the fact that it's down to 2 issues a week, or the fact that they're not apt enough to get online to read it, or they don't want to pass the paywall to read articles like that. And myself, I kind of expressed the fact that I'm fairly competent at finding this stuff out, and I'd never seen anything on it until the article here last week. My concern is a survey was sent out publicly to people, and you received 1,700 or 1,800 respondents, is from what I understand. I asked Mr. Benson if those could all be verified as being independent responses, and he told me they could not. So it's possible that some people could have voted more than once on it. But what really concerns me is nobody along the route was contacted, or nobody along the route was allowed, or at least this route I'm most concerned about. Obviously my route, there's other roads in the community that I can't fight all the battles for everybody, and maybe some people do want it changed, and then it fits very well. However, along my route, I don't know if that's exactly safe due to the fact that every morning there's kids getting on. There's at least 3 different bus stops between Argusville and the Mapleton Road, the Meridian, that the bus has to stop and traffic has to get around. Also, on that time, there's farm machinery moving down that road. That coupled with the fact that we're getting all this other traffic that's coming off the interstate that it's intended for interstate traffic, it just really concerns me that you're going to raise the speed limit from 55 to 65. And I just, before we jump to any conclusions, I guess what I would like to see is residents along that area that are ultimately absorbing the increased danger in that be given an opportunity to speak publicly about it, or to speak to us about it, to hear our concerns on it. I do understand that there was a chance for public input. However, not a lot of us got it. So I guess I would like a little better opportunity for some of the people that are directly affected by it to be able to speak on it.
Anything further, Mr. Lovejoy?
No, I guess, like I said, I sent you guys all an email on it, and that, I think I outlined it fairly well in that email, so I'm not going to bore you with, I can go on forever, so I won't keep boring you guys, so.
I'm the same way, so there you go. Thanks for your time, sir. Commissioners, there we have it. What are your wishes on this matter? Further discussion, a motion? Commissioner Steen.
A question back to Jason. I did read the email that I received today, and obviously when I'm looking at the map, if I was coming from Canada or anywhere else, I'd sure be taking the Argusville exit over to Mapleton. That'd make a whole lot of sense to me. I avoid Fargo, I'd probably cut off 20 miles, I'm just guessing here, maybe 10, something. But cut off a lot of miles and time going through Fargo. So any thoughts on that? Have we noted anything from a highway perspective, a county road perspective? What kind of traffic is building there? Are we seeing more wear and tear? And is this a valid concern?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Steen, so it is a valid concern that there is, with the, the ability for more and more people to use their mapping service on their phone, the algorithms, as Mr. Lovejoy said, they're just taking distance and speed limits and putting it together and finding you the best route. Unfortunately, and then you talk to some of our township officers, that sometimes takes semis down minimum maintenance dirt roads as well. So it's not always the best solution. But ultimately, we did put in our comprehensive and highway plan several years ago a concept for a northwest bypass that would follow the diversion alignment. Of course, that's probably closer to 10 years out before that would happen. We don't really have the ability to sign a road that would say, local truck traffic only, where the sheriff would then have to sit and look at someone and go, are these sugar beets going to the local? Or, obviously if it's Manitoba plates, but I know in talking with the sheriff's department for when this first started happening, we saw more trucks and vehicles taking this as kind of a bypass. They did a bigger effort out there, and there has been a reduction in those numbers of vehicles, but it is something that I think will continue as long as people are using those mapping services, and as long as the Fargo-West Fargo area continues to grow in traffic through that, because that's the other piece is the algorithms also look at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, if there's congestion at the I-29, I-94 interchange, it's going to route you around on our county roads.
Mr. Chair, if I may follow up with that. We can't obviously change, some things, but when and if we do propose that portion of County 11 close to 65, the algorithms will change as well. And more than likely diverting more traffic through 11 and then down to Mapleton, I'm guessing. I mean, so we're gonna make a change in the algorithms by changing our speed limit. And what is that, 15, 16 miles, I'm just guessing, something on County 11, I don't know.
It's about 11 miles from the north end of Mapleton to up to County Road. And so
that's one section of this plan that perhaps, and I know, and I don't disagree with the fact that when we're looking at a express lane around Fargo, West Fargo, this is going to be in the plan, and I agree with that. And there'll be some different things done with the road as well at the same time. And so it seems to me, should there be any consideration given for that, especially on that stretch of 11, to change, not, how can I say this, so not to further encourage people to take the shortcut out of Argosville down 4, down 11, and through Mapleton. I mean, is that a consideration that this commission should make? That's just a discussion question. I'm not an engineer. I'm not a sheriff. But it seems to make sense. We're gonna encourage more traffic down that road by increasing the speed limit. And if we're only cutting off 11 miles or something like that, creating 11 miles of additional speed, we're not really hampering any of the local people by keeping that speed down to 55.
And Mr. Chair, Commissioner Steen, I would say that that stretch of County 11 over the years is one that we have probably handled fewer calls and requests compared to 38, 26, 4. And I think the challenge with County Road 4, it's that last 4 to 5 miles from County 11 over to Argosville and I-29, and to have it 65 miles an hour west of there, and then what we would see as probably a termini that would make sense to go from 65 to 55. The average person driving between Argosville and State 18 or out to Air probably wouldn't see that, and it could be construed as, more of a traffic.
How about County 11 then? What are your thoughts on 11?
I think we could take County Road 11 off, and that would, obviously that would change that algorithm or keep it the way it is right now. And for those rural residents that live along there, that would definitely.
Again, I think it's a valid concern that's been raised. I think the 4, it's a straight shot. It's hard. That's a hard one to argue other than traffic. If we're pushing traffic through Mapleton and across over to Castleton by having number 11 change, that doesn't make a lot of sense to me. To create more, try to create a problem where there currently isn't one. Perhaps, like you said, we don't have a lot of reports, but I would have no heartburn taking that portion of 11 out of the mix.
Just a side note to mess everything up even further here. I do think it'd be a fascinating question to ask the residents of Mapleton what they want. If you're a gas station owner, and I realize everything isn't economically driven, right? There's a life safety question here big time, which is why we're probably going to try to remove this, but it'd be a curious question for Mapleton because I bet there's a truck stop in Mapleton that might grow, right? Because if it does truly impact traffic flow to a quantity where it's more than a handful a day, well, there's dollars that go along with those things. So, and again, not everything's economic, but I guess Commissioner Steen's point, I would also have no heartburn removing that section. Mr. Benson, what does that do to your engineering mind when 2 crazy commissioners want to lop off a stretch of 11, 12 miles?
Mr. Chair, so, right, I think the big thing is that, the signing south of 4 and north of Highway 10, we make sure we've got, additional 55-mile-an-hour signings so that someone isn't coming off of one county paved road and then is making the assumption that the next one is 65. And that's something we don't want to do. And as I've talked with the sheriff's department and,
consider it a speed trap.
Right.
I didn't see that sign. Well, I mean, I get it.
And that is the challenge.
Blame Steen. Commissioner Steen's fault on the bottom of the sign.
And then, and again, I think that's where, trying to have these longer segments that are, contiguous and we are including, besides going out and putting up 65-mile-an-hour signs, we also know that we're gonna have to put up some additional 55-mile-an-hour signs, because right now it's standard, if you're on a county, whether it's a gravel road or a paved road, it's 55, unless otherwise marked, which we would be marking it for 65. But, coming off of any of these intersections with two county paved roads, we would want to make sure that there's additional 55-mile-an-hour signs.
And one last comment, if I may.
Commissioner Steen, please.
Just a thought, and it probably, it wouldn't hurt, as Chairman Peterson pointed out, there's probably not a lot of people along that stretch in 11, but maybe right in town there is, to actually have some direct communication to find out what they want. I mean, we can change the speed on that section anytime we want. There's no rush. I think to turn it to 65 today, but I think it probably bears some additional discussion with the residents in that area and perhaps some of the commerce in that area as well, just to get some feedback. I mean, that's just my thought.
Commissioner Pollock speaking.
Sir.
We have an overwhelming number of residents who are asking for and who want the increase in speed limits. And the area that's in concern for Mr. Lovejoy, which is in the city limits of Argusville, isn't affected by this, what we're talking about. I always share the concerns, are we making things less safe? But if the whole idea is that we want to try to restrict traffic on the roads, well, then let's just sign them all at 45 miles an hour and put up a sign that says local traffic only. The whole idea with the transportation system is to move traffic safely and efficiently. And we can do that in this without compromising that. I spend a lot of time in that area and I drive those roads. Those roads are low volume roads. They're very well designed. I think Cass 11 north of Mapleton is probably one of the nicest highways that we have, and it joins up with another beautiful highway. Traffic drives the speed at which they feel safe. And we've had this proposal came forward because the rural residents of Cass County wanted to see the speed limit raised on the roads. So we've identified it, and it does cause me some heartburn to not follow the recommendations of both the Sheriff's Department and the Highway Department in order to implement this. And to that end, I'll make a motion here to approve the increase in speed limit to 65 miles an hour for 134 miles of Cass County highways, to include Cass 6 from North Dakota 18 to Cass 38, Cass 10 from Wheatland to Mapleton, Cass 4 from North Dakota 38 to Argusville, Cass 26 from Barnes County to I-29, Cass 38 from North Dakota 46 to I-94, Cass 11 from Mapleton to Cass 4, and Cass 15 from Kindred to I-94.
Is there a second, please? Is there a second? Motion dies for lack of a second.
Sure.
Commissioner Steen.
I would take that same motion without reading the whole thing, with eliminating Cass 11 from Mapleton to Cass 4.
North to south. Is there a second, please?
I'll second that motion, but I also have a comment to make.
Okay, moved and seconded by Commissioner Breitling. Commissioner Breitling, your comments, sir.
A lot of people don't realize it, but the city of Mapleton consists of 4 square sections. The speed limit from where 11 intersects with 010 for 2 miles is a reduced speed limit already, because it's within the city limits of Mapleton. What is the speed limit there,
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Breitling, so currently, as you come in from the north or from the east into the city limits, it transitions from 55 down to 40, and then when you hit the core part of the residential area, then it goes from 40 to 25 miles an hour, and it stays 25 through that core, and then as you head south towards I-94, it does go back up to 35 miles an hour until you hit the interstate. So a bulk of that from the levee, the flood levee that's on the north side of town, south, it's 25 or 35.
Commissioner Shirley. Oh, unmute, please.
Sorry. I think it would be appropriate to hold off on that one section on 11 for now, but I don't want to see this just sit out there for another 5 years, because as Commissioner Pollack has said, we've been working on this because it was a request of many residents out there to change these speed limits. So if we need to take a pause on County 11 and do a little more digging on that, I have no opposition to that, but let's make sure we're getting input from all the residents, and maybe that's something we need to talk about too, is how we reach out to people that are affected when we're making these kinds of decisions. Obviously, there's been a lot of change in, newspapers for one, and how do we contact our constituents? So I think that's something that we need to do a little more work on. Thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner, showing to that point. That's one of the things I brought up when this first came up, and it was kind of an awkward situation where it's backed up a couple of years. It's always been sort of a problem I've had regarding how we get the word out to the population at large, and I think we can do a better job. I think our communications director, as I'm looking towards Mr. Wilson's MP chair as he's attending virtually, is a step in the right direction, but I think we can do better. And Mr. Lovejoy, we're actually in discussion, so we're just going to keep chugging there. Sorry, sir. Commissioner Steen.
One last comment, and the only thing, I'll vote for this as I presented, because I understand completely that the likelihood 11 will be part of a bypass plan, and that's part of a bigger plan. I have no issue with that. I'd prefer to be part of a bigger plan with some more input communication. That's the biggest concern. So, thank you.
Perfect. Commissioners, any further discussion?
Commissioner Pollack here.
Yes, sir.
Well, I'm going to support the motion, but I really don't support it because I think we should be taking the whole thing. But if I vote no, then it would appear that I don't support raising the speed limit on these other sections. And you know what's going to happen when the county runs radar? They're going to catch all the local people who use 11 and 4. And then there's going to be complaints because, well, why isn't that 55 or 65? Because look at the rest of this road. But anyway, I'll be supporting it, but I do want to see it raised across the section, across the whole segment.
Is there any further discussion, commissioners? If not, roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Pollack?
Yes.
Dean?
Yes.
Shirley?
Yeah.
Breitling?
Yes.
Peterson?
Yes. Motion passes. Thank you, everyone. I don't think we're quite finished on this yet, Mr. Benson, as you're fully aware now. Appreciate obviously the public's input and everyone that participated. And again, as a gentle reminder, I think that we can do better as a commission and as a county to get the word out. Not being critical of you or anyone in specifics, but I'd like for us to do better in the future. And again, I realize that part of the issue isn't the fact that we don't try to reach out. As this project's a perfect example of that. We've been working on this 5 years. It's not something that came up last week. So over the past 5 years, it's sort of been off the radar. And sometimes people just don't pay attention until it's on their doorstep. But I think we can do better, and I think our public information officer can help us do that. Mr. Benson, your thoughts?
Mr. Chair, I do understand your concern. However, working with our public information officer, by sending this out on our Twitter, Facebook, compared to when we did our overall county-wide comprehensive.
Let's not talk about that.
I mean, the amount of input that we got just in comments, for 150 independent comments in 3 weeks. That's the most that I've ever seen in any public outreach outside of going to a public flood meeting.
Yep, and City of Fargo is no different. Again, not being critical of anyone, it's just people just don't pay attention to local government, and that's a real shame because of the things that we do on a daily basis, or certainly bi-weekly basis, can suddenly impact someone very quickly. So I think we did an exponentially better job than, as you said, the comp plan, where I think a number of us, some of us still sitting in this room, attended those meetings, and it was us every time, and then 2 people on a pretty big project. What I thought was, obviously my background in construction, and I have a bias towards your office because I'm pro these things, and when no one shows up and we're talking about expanding our transportation infrastructure and no one cares, it just arg. It's frustrating because, again, I have a bias obviously towards that, but I think it's long-term visioning. It's incredibly important, and anyway, I'll stop there.
Duly noted, though, Mr. Chair, and I will continue to work with Mr. Solom in our outreach efforts.
Yeah, if we didn't have Catlin, we would have had 20 people. I guarantee it. Okay. Anyway, point is taken. Item 4, bid proposal for Davenport Shop Addition. Mr. Benson, you're on again, sir.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So there was some discussion last meeting regarding the base bid, and which on the top of the second page, because it's part of the base bid for the main building itself, which includes in that the first total of $82,865. You know, it says that it doesn't include concrete. However, the alternate for the concrete footings and foundation and slab for $35,551 is included, plus the 6-foot driveway apron for a total of $41,351. A total of $124,216 for the total concrete and steel building itself. Along with that, had some additional discussion. So our overall budget this year was $400,000 for this project. We expect that the land, we're still nearing completion on closing on for the land, and existing cold storage is $150,000. With this, $124,000. We expect that in working with Mr. Gardner from Buildings and Grounds, complete the project with the electrical, plumbing, lighting, heating, about an additional $20,000 to $25,000. A lot of the other work we're going to do with our own forces, digging the foundation and putting in the gravel aggregate for that concrete and that type of site work. So we're looking at basically, 150 plus 124 plus 25,000, so roughly 300,000 total for this total project build out.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Pollack?
Yes, sir.
So I'm in favor of doing this. I'm not opposed to doing this building at all. But, as I look at this, I don't think that this is a building that I would build if it was for myself. 35-pound snow load. Are you going to be up there shoveling that off? Do you suppose, Jason?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Pollack, no. I mean, those are standard loading for those types of buildings. So, from a safety standpoint, we wouldn't put something in that where we're gonna have to put employees up on it over roof.
Okay. On an R40 on the insulation, I wouldn't build a roof in a commercial building with only R40. And the single slope roof, I don't know what the building itself looks like, but are you building an eyesore here?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Pollock, our desire was not to build something that's going to, take away from the residents of Davenport. That area has, it's along the railroad tracks and has a number of other kind of commercial industrial type metal, steel buildings in that area.
And Jason, you're going to be driving your snowplows into a 14-foot wide door or a 16-foot wide door. Which is it?
16.
Okay, so it looks like a 18-foot sidewall on the high side or on the low side?
On the high side.
So does that slope then cut into your opening for your overhead doors? No.
I'm sorry, it's 18 feet on the low side, so that and the doors would be on the high side.
Well, are you sure you're going to be happy with this building for the next 50 years? As if you and I are both going to be here in 50 years. Nick, I might
it has been a balance of trying to, get something economical, with the main focus of getting something that's got more space so we can more safely get both motor graders in to this building compared to right now where it's a tough squeeze. And of course, the current building, we don't have enough property around it, so we're parking on other people's land with our equipment. This project has been a challenge that we want to make sure that this is functional, but not, overly expensive for the use that it is getting, which is, a lot of times this building doesn't have people in it because the motor grader operators report to work there, they get in their equipment, they do maintenance checks, and then they're on the road, and off and on they are in there working. But I do understand your concern that we want to make sure we're good residents of Davenport with our facilities too.
Right. Yeah, I don't question the need for the building. I just want you to be sure that this is the right building. And it really doesn't have to be done this year. I mean, I know that you're pushing to get it up this fall, but fall is fast turning into winter, and if you didn't get started on until next spring, I don't think you're going to lose that much because you're not going to have the use of it till February anyway.
Commissioner Pollock, to that point, thank you for bringing that up, because that is, as we get closer to winter, it is going to be a challenge to get this steel building in by the end of the year, just with the fluctuation of our current economic environment in this nation, where some steel products are coming on time, some are getting delayed, and of course we don't know what future shutdowns of some of these facilities because of COVID and other situations could cause delays. And I would prefer not to, do some of this work if we are having an early winter, purely for the fact to just rush to get it done when, we could complete this project next spring and early summer.
So, Mr. Benson, Commissioner Pollock, anything further, sir?
No, I would just say, I'm going to support the motion if it comes forward for this, but I'm not tied to necessarily only this. If you decide you want to change your mind and do something more in the time before you actually have to commit to a contract, I could live with that too.
Thank you. So, Mr. Benson, total project cost. Help me out with the building cost. We obviously have two proposals. The question was concrete and how that's all involved. What I'm seeing for RJS, it's $124,216, but then I go down to the FAO building, And I see that at 119. And we're asking for RJS. So what am I missing? I'm assuming the RJS, which I thought was a typo this last time, apparently was not correct. So we add in the base plus the foundation walls, the concrete, and we're left with the, I'm presuming the 124,216. And if I go to the FAO and I go all in on there, I go 86,922 plus the 4-foot foundation wall, which should be a no-brainer up here. 33, I'm at 119,922. Let's follow what I'm seeing here, my friend. And I could be very wrong in this, but that's why I'm asking for clarification. Would it be easier for you to jump up here and take a look at my station?
Mr. Chair, I think I've got.
Heather has a copy for you if you, that would help.
Of the
file. Yep.
Land's also on the phone too. I don't, around the team, but I don't know if he knows more.
Mr. Chair, I know that this was really, really close. I believe it was, you know, the increase to the 124,000 was in part by adding the alternate of the 6-foot or 6-inch concrete driveway apron, 50 by 20, which, because it's $550 a square foot.
A thousand at a unit cost of $550 also. So maybe that's your difference, where it's just literally pennies apart.
Here, once we have the numbers, I will follow up, if I may. I don't want to interrupt Jason. Let him do his thing, and then I can.
Sorry for the delay, commissioners and everyone online. Just want to make sure that we, not I, are crossing our, Commissioner Pollock. Yes, sir.
Thanks. I see the FAO bid includes a third overhead door, which I'm not picking out of the RJS building, which would add a little bit too. 1 by 8 over OH, I'm assuming that's overhead for overhead door, insulated, no motor, no windows.
It is, sir. And maybe this is the time to add something prudent, if I may jump before me.
Just one question, if I may.
Commissioner,
and I think Mr. Pollock brought up a really good point, and it didn't seem like Jason objected at all. Would this be a project better bid and completed in 21? I'm just, what's your preference, as I'm getting at here? Because you got issues, you got timing, which is the biggest issue. The costing is not an issue, but it's something that's got to get figured out. You know, Commissioner Pollock raised points. Is this the building you want? Is this how you want it done? And I'm going to speak up. I don't think there's any issue carrying a balance over from 2020 to 2021 on the budget. We need to.
We'll take this from Mr. Benson. You're going to see construction costs go up 10% or more next year. So you can add, just in the same box, you'll add on $10,000 to $15,000. The other thing is, and this may be the time as Mr. Benson's working on his math here, and this may or may not help Commissioner Pollock, but I actually designed the prototype for the DOT. In our state DOT, maybe not, you know, we don't have to model everything after them, but you'd find a very similar floor plan built, I want to say, a dozen times throughout the state on a prototype I designed 15 years ago, and they're still standing. They're, like you said, they're not as beautiful as you may like them some days, but they serve the purpose and they keep the machines dry and cozy. So so. Won't win any awards in this one, I bank, I promise you that. Commissioner Price.
Can anyone explain to me whether we're using the alternate on the bottom of the third page, or are we using stuff on the fourth and fifth page?
And that's what we're taking a peek at right now. That's where the numbers are all compounded.
So, Mr. Chair, so for the FAO, and Blaine, I know you're on, if there's something that I misquote, let me know. But so the total building itself was 86,922 for FAO.
Yes, sir.
Then we're not doing the breezeway for 14,000, but we would do the concrete, so that's 33,000, plus the footings and slab 27,000, plus the driveway above that, above and beyond that for the 550 square foot. So between the 4-inch or 4-foot walls, floor, styrofoam around, plus the footings and slab around, basically 60,000 for that, plus the 86,000, so that's 146.
So you have to have, you're an engineer, so you have to have footings regardless. So
right.
That's the beautiful part about some of these estimates, where they just don't quite.
I know they never.
What you're describing isn't correct, and I'm not saying that you're wrong. I'm saying the way this proposal is written is not ideal, because you wouldn't add. How about this? I take you at your word. I know that you've talked to these guys, and I know Blaine has as well, but the intent is the suggestion is that there's $60,000 in concrete on this building, correct? In the FAO proposal.
I see what you're saying.
The footing is actually a perimeter bond beam, right?
Correct.
In the 27th, it's not. I don't mean to get too much into these here, Commissioner, so I apologize. But the footings and slab, that would be a perimeter bond beam that's 18 inches by 24 inches with a 6-inch slab rate and slab, whatever you call it, for. So they're saying for an additional wall and insulation, they want 33,000 in addition to the 27,000. Okay.
So, yeah, Commissioner, so so if we took, if we had the 33,000 plus the 86,922, that's 19,922, and so the difference is really in that with the RJS, the alternate also has the 6-inch apron, which is a 50 by 20, so 1,000 square feet.
Yep, and you add 5,800 for that.
So the only way these two proposals are off is in the concrete, really.
Precisely.
Right.
It's just a matter of determining what that, this isn't really a bid. It is what it is. It's a proposal. It's not, you don't have any drawings quantifying anything. So, and maybe if I may, Mr. Benson, I do see Blaine was on here. There he has hands up and everything. Blaine, I see your hand up. Can you rectify this? And again, I think we're to the stage. You've put a lot of time into this. What are your thoughts? And let me know how wrong I am.
Yeah, can you hear me, commissioners?
Absolutely.
Okay. So yeah, the meat and bones between this difference is like we're talking $1,500 between RJS and FAO. With FAO's, they put, I think, and I don't have that in front of me, I apologize, but I believe their 27,000 versus the 33,000 was either with footings or without footings. So the footings was the more expensive option, where theirs was 33,000, I believe. So if you look at RJS's, he's got it broke down to the linear foot of footing, in addition with the concrete. And we decided not to do the $5,800 apron right now, I guess. If we needed to, we could do it at a later time. But it's one of those deals right now. I was hopeful that we'd maybe be able to get it done yet this fall, but as you guys know and know as well, the weather is turning here for us. We just thought that if we ordered the building, it sounded like it'd probably be a 10 to 12 week out type of scenario to get all the building materials. So that's what we were looking for. But if we think, I can go either way if we want to wait. I know I'm not going to be able to use it yet this winter anyways, regardless, I guess. So I'll leave that in the eye of the beholder on your guys' part as well.
Your costs are going to escalate over winter. Bank on it, and it's not going to be small. It's going to be substantive. So suffice it to say, we're still with the RJS, full footing and foundation, full building, aesthetically not to Commissioner Pollock's ideal, but we'll get there along the way. Commissioners, your further thoughts? Commissioner Steen, do you have a comment? Okay. Your thoughts or discussion, Commissioners?
No, Commissioner Pollock speaking. I'm ready to move ahead with this. It's just that if before you sign this contract, you decide you want to upgrade it, that we would sure consider that as well. Because it just looks to me like there's a lot of on the fly type numbers that are in here, and if Fowl wanted $60,000 for concrete and the other fellow wants $41,351 for concrete, you know, we're talking about two different things here. So there may be a surprise for you in the RJS. But to move this along, I'll authorize the chairperson to approve the quote from RJS for $124,216 pending your closing on the property at 85 First Avenue in Davenport.
Is there a second, please? Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Mr. Benson, we're good, yeah?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Any discussion? Any discussion? If not, roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Peterson?
Yes.
Steen?
Yes.
Pollock?
Yes.
Sherling?
Yes.
Brightling?
Yes.
Motion passes. Thank you, Mr. Benson. Thank you to your team. That's the Highway Department. Item 5, County Coroner, Mr. Wilson.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, thank you very much. I thought my computer was going to freeze up there for just a moment. You appointed a committee consisting of myself, Sheriff Johnner, State's Attorney Burdick, yourself as Commission Chair, and Commissioner Steen as a interview committee for considering applicants for the coroner position. That committee interviewed the lone applicant that submitted a application packet by the deadline, that applicant being Ms. Christy Ross, our current interim coroner. And at the conclusion of that interview and discussion, the committee voted to recommend the commission, the board, appointing Ms. Ross as the commission, as the county coroner for a 5-year term. I can certainly answer any questions that you may have, but that is at your for your consideration at this point.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson. Yeah, I think this is a no-brainer. Don't know who else we'd hire. I think she's more than qualified, and I think we saw a little bit of that in its full force here about an hour and a half ago. So yeah, more than that ago, 2 hours ago. With that, Commissioner Sherling.
Thank you. Just a quick question on the 5-year term. Is that something out of century code that we do, or just curious how you got to that?
It is, and I would defer any comments to Mr. Burdick that he wants to make, but coroners are appointed to 5-year terms per century code.
This is Burge. Commissioner Sherling, yes, the statute says, excuse me, Mr. Chair, if it's all right.
Absolutely, Mr. Burdick.
All right. The statute does say 5-year appointments. Some years back, it said 2 years. The legislature modified it to 5 years. It does not mean that you are stuck so to speak. Not that, I mean, you could always appoint somebody else if Christine wanted to go somewhere else, for example, if she moved to Paducah. But the idea is that you make an appointment for 5 years. So I really don't know what that means, but you could always do something else, and she could leave if she wished to.
So we're not signed into a contract, say for $30 million a year, like Vikings Kirk Cousins, and you can't cut the person? Just saying.
That would be correct, but for 30 million, I'm sure Christie would be willing to sign that.
I was going to work that into this meeting somehow. Okay, commissioners, further discussion or thoughts? Commissioner Steen.
I move to appoint Christie Ross as Cass County Coroner for the term of 5 years effective November 1, 2020. Step 5, pay grade D62 with an annual salary of $81,652.
There a second, please?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion on the motion? Any discussion, Commissioner Sherling? Your hand is up.
No, sorry, I will put it down.
Thank you. Further discussion? If not, roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Brightling,
Yes.
Peterson,
Yes.
Dean,
Yes.
Pollock,
Yes.
Sterling.
Yes.
Thank you, commissioners. I think we all agree this is as good a transition as we could have hoped for, especially given the circumstances regarding his health prior, meeting Dr. Baird, and then transitioning to our new team. So this is a great thing. With that, thank you. And number 6, appraisal of tax unfitted properties. Mr. Montplaisir, I saw you're on. There you are.
Yes, you do have to set the minimum sale price of properties that we've taken for taxes. We have about 45 properties on the list right now. Quite a few of these will be paid off between now and the middle of November when we actually have the sale, but that's what we have right now. The way we normally price these are the larger of what is owed against the property, which includes, 3 years of taxes plus an estimate for next year's taxes, or 25% of the value on the property. And that's just a starting point for bidding. From here, we'll seek some input from the cities and the townships in which these properties are located, and also from the tax director and the tax director in Fargo and West Fargo. So, but this is where the list stands today.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Montplaisir? Commissioner Steen.
Move to set the minimum sales prices as recommended by the county auditor. The county finance director now, by the way?
Correct.
County finance director. To set the hearing date on the minimum sales prices for 3:30 p.m. on November 2nd, 2020, the Cass County Commissioner.
Is there a second, please?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Any discussion?
Question for Mr. Montplaisir. When we turn, a piece of property inside of the city limits, we turn it back to the city. Is that just a $0 transfer?
Well, first of all, we have to go through the public sale, and if nobody purchased the property at the public sale, then if the city has special assessments against the property, we can offer it to the city, and normally we offer it at $1. The reason we do that is because the city is in the best position of getting the property back on the tax rolls. For instance, one of the properties in Fargo is a house in which a fellow died a couple of years ago in the house. The family is not interested in keeping the house. Most likely what will happen is the city will buy it from us, and then they'll in turn tear it down and probably build a new spec house type thing on there to sell through their, I forget the name of their new program, but where they're trying to get ownership in property in Fargo.
Okay, so the real question and motivation is the whole idea has to be, our goal has to be to get these back on the property tax roll.
Correct.
Okay, because to donate it for a cause that puts them in there and they don't pay any property tax, that doesn't accomplish that. It might accomplish other goals, but if our goal is to get it back on the rolls, I just wanted to get that out there.
No, the city has been using what's called the land trust. I think you've heard about that before, where if you look on 13th Avenue South, there's a new property going up there. just east of University Drive. That's one that we sold the city a few years back.
Okay, and those are property tax paying?
Yes.
All right, good.
Any further questions? If not, roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Sherling?
Yes.
Brightling?
Yes.
Peterson?
Yes.
Steen?
Yes.
Pollock?
Yes.
Motion passes. Item 7, strategic plan review, accountability team feedback, Mr. Wilson.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, good afternoon again. Just wanted to take this opportunity to brief you on our progress on the strategic plan. And one of the mechanisms that we built into that strategic planning process more than a year ago when we undertook this was the creation of an accountability team. And this is a group of general employees as well as a department head, Mr. Benson, and a commissioner, Commissioner Breitling, that would meet periodically and review the plan and the goals that had been achieved to date. And that group would have an opportunity to provide an assessment of how we've done really on accomplishing the goals. And recall, this is a 3-year plan, and we're now about a year into it. And so we have had the opportunity to meet with the accountability team. That happened back on September 24th. And I put together a briefing memo for that group that is included in your packet of where I think we've made real strides, where I think we still have opportunity to continue to progress. And then they had the opportunity to give me some feedback and let me know what they think we've done well and where we still can improve. So we had that interaction on the 24th, and then I took that information, also shared it with department heads on our department head meeting that happened the week after that. And then finally, we are bringing that information to you as in a briefing to the commission. And so I know we made the offer to have any members of the accountability team join the meeting and share their impressions with you if they chose to do so. I can run through the memo if you would like. I would stand by for questions if you would like. I think really the highlights of what I talked about with both meetings is the number one was hiring for the communications coordinator position that came out of that. Obviously, Mr. Catlin Solom has been hired by the county, and I think with him coming on in March, and then dealing with everything related to COVID that we have since then, Catlin has been a tremendous asset, not only the administration office, but I think the organization in general. I think one other thing that we as administration group realized is that a lot of the things that we really focused on in the plan are having our HR office take on some additional responsibilities and additional actions. We realized that with an office of 2, that we just have not been able to fully capitalize on those opportunities up to this point. And so we brought forward the request to you to add a payroll clerk so that we can free up more of HR Director Cindy Stoick's time to work on some of these activities. Those are just really the first couple of things that came to mind. The feedback I got from the accountability team meeting was that there was an appreciation for what we've done to date, and I heard the comment that it was nice to see because members of that group felt like the commission and the administration were really listening to employees. And so I took that as a certainly positive feedback. But I would, I would look to answer any of your questions, or if any of the members of the team would like to offer comments.
Commissioner Steen has a question for you, Mr. Wilson. Mr. Wilson, I have just got one question for you. I read the report, very good report, thank you. But on your last page, Roman numeral 3 of embracing growth, could you explain what you're getting at there with this? It looks like a proposal of some type. Budget cycle meeting with other local jurisdictions to assess if there are emerging needs that should be built into an upcoming budget.
That was a comment that was offered during the team meeting, and the example that was offered was, I think most of you are familiar with the annual meeting that the Fargo Parks District has hosted in the past, with really all area jurisdictions coming together, just kind of talking about what are the top 2 or 3 items for each organization, with an opportunity to understand how they might intermingle. And the discussion here was, sometimes if we have those ideas surface where there's some way that we want to partner or something that we could do together, if those ideas are first hatched or shared before they come to a budget initiative, then there's the opportunity to strengthen some of those partnerships and maybe move a possibility forward sooner. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does, Mr. Wilson. One thing though you provided me, I wasn't even aware of the fact that the Park District had a multi-jurisdictional meeting that they had all come together, discussion about what was, needed. I wasn't aware of that, so thank you.
They generally do it in the spring. I'm pretty sure we canceled it this year because that was right about the time that there were a lot of other things happening on that. And the point that you asked for, I see Mr. Benson looks like he might be about to approach the podium. This was really a suggestion from Mr. Benson, so I wasn't going to put him on the spot. But Jason, it's your idea. I think you'd do as well as anybody to explain your thought process there as you shared that with the accountability team.
Benson, and then Commissioner Sherling, I see you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Basically, kind of piggyback onto what Mr. Wilson was saying, that the sooner that we can collaborate with other agencies as to identifying things that are coming our way that could impact our budget, the sooner that we can start thinking about programming that, so that we can get those ideas into our preliminary budgets, because we know when some of these things come up in June and you've got 30 days to come up with a budget line item, it's probably that extra buffer you're going to put into that budget line item is going to be maybe 20-30% instead of 5%, because you've had 6 months to work it out and refine that and come up. And because of the fact that we are very budget driven, if you miss a certain point, well, then it's wait until the next year, and so for some of these things. So having that communication and collaboration, and as an accountability team member, first I want to thank Mr. Wilson for continuing this process. I think everybody that's on the accountability team has that internal going, I wish when we look at the plan and the effort that we did, that we'd be a little bit further along, but COVID and we've been overcome by a lot of different events. And so I think that's all right. And it's identifying that, all right, we've got some delays and maybe where we anticipated this would be halfway through our strategic plan. but that we continue to address it and continue to review it and make sure that we're making progress in the areas that we can make progress, where we can't. We realize that, maybe we have to hit the brakes a little bit and wait for this, COVID and other things to get passed, but that we continue to move forward, and this doesn't just sit and collect dust, and then we have people that have grievances or concerns and they were never addressed in the plan.
We could also reduce budgets based on synergies created by teamwork instead of increasing, Mr. Benson. Anyway, Commissioner Sherlin, you had a question.
Thank you. I appreciate the report that you provided today. I know a lot of time and effort went into doing this this project, and it's really great to see some positive things coming out of it. But one of the things that I recall during our meetings was how do we cultivate just a positive culture, especially towards public outreach. Has that come up anymore in any of the conversations? And I guess I would say, just to kind of, also not just only to the public, but to each other, to make sure that, we're a vibrant workforce serving Cass County, and a happy workforce.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Sherling, I will say that I think we got some good feedback, and I've also had good feedback anecdotally from different departments that the work of the communications coordinator to share some messages, whether that's election-related messages for the finance office, or working with Mr. Benson on the distributing information for the speed limit change that we just discussed. I think those were highlighted as examples of good work there. I think to your point, I did hear some very valuable feedback of one way that we can continue to do a little better, maybe, is to provide more information back to members of at least some of the larger departments, of more general information to employees in human services or in the sheriff's office, and I think that is very good. That led to one of the messages that I shared at the department head meeting, was that is really where we need some help with content. We have a good platform and a good opportunity to share information both externally, internally, but we need content. And so I think as that's been highlighted to us as something that maybe we need to focus on now, I think you'll see more movement along that line. I know just a similar but not the same path. I know we're having some talks internally of how we can maybe update the employee newsletter and do some things that bring more information forward to the employees. I hope that answers what you were looking for.
Yep, thank you.
Okay.
Any further questions, commissioners? All right, if not, obviously, Mr. Benson, yes.
Just one last comment, Mr. Chair. This is a big project and a big process to take on, and we know I think when we undertook the effort to develop our comprehensive plan, we knew that there's some things you're never going to get to. It's aspirational. That's why we do these things, and it's a big thing. And there's the different analogies. One of them is how do you eat an elephant one bite at a time? And we've been taking those bites, and through the things that Mr. Wilson's been doing, getting the payroll clerk, getting our public information officer, starting to continue to get more information out to employees. So it's continuing with that process, and I think while we are a little bit delayed because of COVID, at the end of this 3-year point, we're going to be a lot further ahead in employee satisfaction and in communicating what we do compared to if we wouldn't have undertaken this effort in the first place.
Thank you, Mr. Benson. Commissioners, anything else? If not, we'll proceed on to, alert us, panic alarm. Mr. Wilson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. We had briefly began to touch on this at the sheriff's rotational meeting earlier this afternoon, so I can answer questions in any detail that you may have. I'll go through just kind of the highlights of the briefing memo. Obviously, the Alertus program is something that we have currently in operation. When it was first rolled out, really it was a function of IT in many regards. It was used to alert us on whether it was a network issue that was something might be down for a little bit of time, and then notifications came when it came back up. We've started using that more for some weather announcements. Occasionally, if there's a suspicious package or something around one of the campuses that the sheriff's office wants to make the employee group aware of as they're in the process investigating, it's been used. But this would be a new function for the system, and there's an opportunity there where you can attach essentially panic alarms to desktop computers. It's plugged in to the desktop, can be mounted under desks, and if somebody were to have an issue, can just hit the button and that would send a message to the security desk in either courthouse or annex. There was a question earlier of really the need for this as we are fortunate to have security stations at the entrance to both the courthouse and the annex. And the example that I gave was many times in the annex and human services. You've got a lot of offices where employees are meeting with members of the public in very small offices that most of the time do not have windows. And if somebody were to get agitated in that setup, they're really the first awareness of that people outside the office would largely be raised voices. Mr. Burdick has also mentioned occasionally that folks visiting his office in that front counter area get a bit animated. It happens occasionally up in the clerk's office area, as well as in our office area in administration. Again, this doesn't happen all the time, but occasionally. And so we do have a proposal before you for a purchase in the amount of just over $20,000 that would purchase 65 panic buttons that are tied to desktops, 5 wall-mounted alert beacons, and 10 panic buttons that would be mounted in the annex in the courthouse building. We do have funds available for this. There was $100,000 allocated in the courthouse maintenance budget in 2020 for an emergency communications intercom system. At that point, the reason that allocation was worded that way is at that point we weren't 100% sure if we were going to go the route of something that would essentially work through our fire alarm system or through the Alertus system. And so that through a pretty extensive review of comparable products, it was by IT, administration, sheriff's office, building and grounds, was agreed that this is the most effective and appropriate way to move forward. I stand by for your questions.
Commissioners, any questions? Discussion, a motion? Commissioner Steen.
I think, something like this is one of those things you hope you never have to use. It's kind of like a storm cellar, a tornado shelter. You hope you never have to use it, but you tend to put it in anyway. And I think it's if this meets the needs that was something was budgeted for, previously or part of the system, I think it's well worth the $20,000 cost. So I'll move to authorize the chair to sign a purchase order with the Alertus Technologies LLC in the amount of $20,235 to purchase and install additional panic buttons and alert beacons in the courthouse and annex buildings.
Is there a second, please?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Any discussion? If not, roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Steen,
Yes.
Sherling,
Yes.
Brightling,
Yes.
Peterson,
Yes.
Pollock,
Yes.
Motion passes. Item 9, coronavirus update. Mr. Wilson.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, I've had fairly brief updates for you on this topic in the last couple of meetings. I'll have a little, probably a little lengthier update at this point. First one was we are looking to really adopt a stricter use of masks within the buildings. And, obviously it's no secret we've got an increasing number of positives, COVID-19 positives in Cass County these days. We have, I would say that many of the protective measures that we have taken as a county have proven effective. We have not had large outbreaks or numbers of positives among our employee group. But we also, I think, have a responsibility to be diligent to see if there's a way that we can do better, and if we need to, in essence, up our game because of the number of cases that we have around the community and the county, and that is really the reason.
Let me cut you off, Mr. Wilson, just so you know.
Yes.
Tim Mahoney issued a mask mandate earlier today that takes a lot of this discussion off the table if we're going to abide by that. So I think the mask mandate supersedes everything that you're talking about.
Okay. Well,
please talk just to let you.
Sure. And the mask update of the mask policy would be as employees are at their workstations and in county facilities. And really the change is that we had asked employees and directed employees to be wearing masks whenever they were unable to socially distance the 10 minutes, 6 feet, or meeting with members of the public. And really where we're going moving forward to that is if you're not by yourself at your permanent workspace, regardless of ability to socially distance, if you're moving around your office, the hallways in general, you need to be wearing the masks at all times unless you're at your permanent workspace. And for visitors, they are, as they have been, they will continue to be offered masks whenever they enter county facilities. I have verified with public health, and they still recommend and indicate that there needs to be a caveat or a recognition that some people cannot handle masks, and so that needs to be recognized. So the updated mask policy, which is included for your review, would be that the employee portion that I just discussed, but also for visitors to county facilities would be offered a mask and expected to wear one, and if they refuse, that would be taken as an understanding that they are not able to do so.
I'd like to talk about that if we could. What about the employees then who have to deal with the person who's not wearing a mask? I don't think it's fair to ask them to deal with a customer or a visitor who's not wearing a mask when they themselves are masked up.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Pollock, understand your point completely, and I think that's the crosshairs of the consideration between listening to the public health argument that or advice that not to deny service to anyone due to lack of a mask use versus exactly what you've said of recognizing that use of a mask prevents virus spread. And so I would be open to other language, but that is the reason that the language has been as it is previously and continues in this proposal.
Well, I believe that language is a little too soft. What we're doing isn't working. And I think that if we require masks, and especially now we're requiring masks of the staff, I believe that we should expect visitors to the county courthouse to abide by that as well. And I don't know. I mean, I just really don't know about the medical circumstances, and I'm not asking about that. But if the policy is masks are to be worn, then I think masks are to be worn.
Understood, and certainly I'm happy to make that change or that adjustment at the direction of the board. I had again really drafted this with the public health advice in mind, but I understand your point 100%, no question.
Mr. Wilson?
Yes.
Yep.
So I would agree with Commissioner Pollock. Do we have a sign at the front door? I mean, indicating that masks are required? Because I think the vast majority of people would, you know, especially with what's going on, would just, sure, of course we're going to wear a mask. You know, and if folks really have a tough time wearing a mask, there's many, many ways to conduct county business without having to expose other people, you know, by coming in without a mask. So, yeah, that's just my 2 cents, I guess.
Appreciate that comment. I believe we do have that signed at the front door. I know the deputies that are working the security station are encouraging masks of all visitors as they come in.
Mr. Burdick, I figure you had a thought on this. See your hand up, and then Commissioner Steen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm sorry, I stepped out of my office for just a moment to grab something from the printer, and I don't know if I heard a discussion about the court. Most of the people who are coming into the courthouse who are not employees are going to court. 2 of the 9 judges, I think, have recently indicated that they're going to require masks. The other 7 not. I don't know what direction they would take from the county on that. Obviously, it's the county's courthouse. But there's an interplay there between people having access to the courts or not. If somebody has health problems or otherwise, we're going to have to somehow deal with that and figure out how to work around it.
Thank you, Commissioner Steen.
Oh, I'm not sure that. Were you done?
Mr. Burdick, anything further?
I'm happy to have a discussion with the court about that. The presiding judge is out for a couple of weeks, but I can go to the person next in charge and ask them from that perspective what they have in mind or thoughts about it.
Perfect. Commissioner Steen.
I had 2 questions. One, Mr. Burdick covered, that was my first question, was what are the judges going to do about this in their courtrooms, which we may own, but they run? And then the second one was I understand the concern about this mask issue with regard to, well, I don't, you know, if they have a medical issue or not. And we didn't make that up. That came from a higher power than we have. I don't know if it's from the state or from somewhere, but I know there was a concern early on that, you know, if you have a medical issue, whatever that might be, could be asthma, could be who knows what, you're not going to be required to wear a mask. But I don't know where that came from, but it came from somewhere. And before we jump to conclusions, whether we can ignore it, we should probably figure out where that came from.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, Commissioner Steen, that has been a recommendation that we've had from Fargo Cass Public Health, and that was the basis of why our original policy was drafted the way it was, and I confirmed that was still recommendation last week in prepping this item.
But they do the same thing in Minnesota, and I don't think Fargo Cass Public Health influenced Minnesota whatsoever. It's the same, basically, rule to follow in Minnesota as that one. I don't know where it's from.
Hey, Sheriff Johnner, I saw your hand up, sir.
I was just simply going to add, when you mentioned the sheriff's staff, they are asking everyone who comes in to wear a mask, and they told me that they have not gotten any kickback from people at this point. That's all I was going to add. Certainly, Mr. Burdick would have the legal opinions on what we could enforce and what we couldn't. That's what we're always looking for, just make sure that we're in line with what he would be willing to back as far as us, you know, doing the enforcement and possibly, worst case scenario, I guess, charging someone out. But certainly we look for his opinion. But at this point, we have not, when our staff is asking, people have been compliant with us.
Thank you. Mr. Burdick, is it time for you to share what you and Mr. Wilson talked about earlier today? I'd say it probably is, but.
Well, do you want the short version or the long version, Mr. Sheriff? The short version is if Cass, hey, we're talking about a couple of things here. We're talking about whether there's a countywide mandate or whether there is a courthouse mandate. I think it's pretty clear that the Cass County Commission has authority over the courthouse. I think as to outside of the courthouse within Cass County, I think that the commission could enact an ordinance with, you know, a facially valid ordinance requiring the wearing of masks, but best I can tell that would only apply to the unincorporated areas, essentially those areas outside of the cities. I just, when Commissioner Peterson just mentioned the Fargo passed a mandate, that was a surprise to me. I went on and read it. It's a mandate without any enforcement provisions. So it comes out as a strong recommendation, I think is the way it's worded, although it calls itself a mandate. So what I also said to Commissioner Peterson and Mr. Wilson was, I think under our home rule charter, you could pass an ordinance, but I couldn't guarantee you wouldn't get sued, and I couldn't tell you exactly how the courts are going to come out. They've come out all over the place, all over the country. So it's hard to say, and I think, without knowing, that West Fargo is not going to be inclined, at least at this stage, doesn't mean it won't change, to enact an ordinance, and so you'd have the peculiar circumstance where you are trying to enforce an ordinance up to within 1 foot of the West Fargo lines and not thereafter. I don't know exactly how that works for a citizen, but if you're only considering the courthouse, I think you're on very solid ground.
I think, thank you, Mr. Burdick. It's important to share that so that we had sort of an open dialogue about this, because the important takeaway from that is, A, we can do it maybe if we feel so compelled, but then more importantly, B, it's, I guess, B and C. So B, the enforcement of it, and C, whether it makes any sense to be prudent to be requiring masks in the middle of farm fields, right? So the incorporated cities we have no impact on. So until they choose, what we'd be doing is essentially symbolic. But yeah, Sheriff Johnner.
I just simply wanted to add that I'm falling very much in line here with Birch. I just looking at of course, the enforcement piece and sending our staff out to enforce something like this. I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, Birch, that a violation if an ordinance was enacted, much like we would do for, or like we have done, I should say, for an animal ordinance, is that we would simply be probably issuing a court date for maybe a couple of the violations and then maybe something mandatory after that. I was just going to kind of see where you were at with that. Of course, any sort of enforcement of jail time or anything like that, I think is would be hard to work through, so to speak, especially with our jail, the capacity is and for bringing people, you know, for something like that. So I don't know what you'd be looking at as far as the ordinance, Birch, but just kind of giving a perspective from our side on how we would be able to enforce that as the sheriff's office.
Thank you, Sheriff. We're not even close to that yet, so don't fret quite yet. Commissioner Sherlin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, and thank you, Mr. Burdick. That was a question I had, because it seems like the message that I'm hearing is that we, you know, the state is really encouraging, you know, local control and local, you know, policing of whatever happens to be done here. And obviously, City of Fargo is much different than the City of Page. And so that seems to me to make sense. And if our jurisdiction is just over farm fields, then that maybe isn't going to help much either. But that being said, I think a lot of us, I mean, you know, we're getting caught up in mask mandates, and I think it's important that we all wear masks. But that being said, are there other things that are getting lost in that message? And are there other things that we could be doing? And I just, you know, I'm aware of many large gatherings that went on this weekend in Cass County. And I mean, they're happening all over the place. And I'm aware of some tragic infections as a result. And, you know, could our website be addressing some of this? And I don't want to be the armchair quarterback here, but, you know, gosh, if I came down with symptoms, I'm hearing all kinds of things. Do you go to Fargo Cass Public Health? Do I call my own doctor? And then I hear, well, maybe you can get in, maybe you can't get in. You know, how long are you supposed to isolate? What I'm hearing, the CDC is saying, North Dakota is saying something else. I think most people want to do the right thing. They just want to know what it is. I mean, how many ICU beds are left in Fargo? Why isn't that public information, at least readily public information? And maybe that could be on our website. You know, and then the other thing I noticed in South Dakota anyway, is if there's a large gathering, people know about it, that there was an outbreak at, you know, at a certain rodeo or concert event, you know, and I get HIPAA laws, but gosh, considering the fact of what this virus is doing to our economy right now, wouldn't it be good to know if that 200-person wedding that happened last Saturday had an outbreak, so that if you happen to be there and nobody mentioned it to you, that you'd know? Because I don't know how many times I've walked into a gathering like that and didn't know a lot about people. So how do people know if they were exposed? Are people getting it at the grocery store? You know, how is the public supposed to know? Because I think most of us feel like we're pretty safe, that we're doing the right thing. But, you know, are we? And maybe we're being too careful, because I guarantee you, I have never been in a small business in Fargo that was shoulder to shoulder person that I would feel uncomfortable right now shopping in. So, you know, as far as I'm concerned, keep those doors open. But what about these other mass gatherings that continue to go on? I think that we should just maybe utilize some of our resources to make sure that everybody understands what they can do and what they should be doing, and what's available to them. You know, I also noticed that, you know, we never hear about Clay County, and we're one community and we're all using the same healthcare system. And, maybe those numbers should be tallied in somehow too, so that we're all aware. I mean, I don't know. And like I said, I'm not going to the meetings every day, but I feel like I'm just an average citizen here and I'm pretty much in the dark. Other than I'm supposed to be wearing a mask. I know that.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Sherling and Commissioner Peterson, jump in at any point that you want here. But a couple of your points there of information that we're looking to share. And I know Catlin is monitoring new information, updated information that is coming out from Public Health locally and the State Department of Health, following that continuously and trying to push as much of that out social media real time as he possibly can to make that that information known. Is social media a be all and end all to get information out? Absolutely not. But that is where the most current information is often being shared. When it comes to what information is being shared, what we're hearing from our task force calls and from our morning briefings several times a week is that largely that information is controlled at the state level of what is available for distribution, with the exception of information specific to healthcare systems, and they are the different systems are controlling I won't say controlling, are managing the information flow out of their facilities. With regard to Clay County and the work with absolutely one community, but the portion of the community on the other side of the river, we are in weekly contact, if not more, with Clay County and the city of Moorhead. But those are some of the issues that we hear about on a daily and weekly basis, and that I know the task force struggles with, of numbers from Clay County, from Moorhead. Okay, how many of those actually were tested in Fargo, reported out? So those are all discussions that are going on continuously. And while I can't provide you with a great answer, I would tell you that they are top of mind issues continuously. And Chair Peterson, I would just wonder if you have any additional thoughts to share on that topic.
Yeah, I think real quick, whoops, there we go, some blowback. I think real quick, you can jump to our website, you can pull up all the coronavirus data, plus you have a direct link there. Of course, it's gone down as I just pulled it up here. Wish Terry was here so I could glare at him. But it's there, and it's a matter of doing some due diligence. I actually get questions periodically too. So actually, I was in the Grand Forks area after our association meeting, and I got a text from them saying, hey, where is this info? So I quick linked a couple sites, which is the North Dakota Department of Health, and got them all the information they needed. I do think, Mary, what you're saying is spot on. Commissioner Sherling, is what you're saying is spot on. I think a lot of people are confused because it's overwhelming. And I think what I've tried to communicate to the COVID task force is simplifying things, much like with our diversion messaging. It's always been 65 million gigawatts of cubic feet of acres, feet of 75-foot elevation. And it gets so muddled so quick that everyone gets suddenly very confused. So I've tried to do my best to our current task force saying we need to simplify the message, more bullet points rather than details, which is why if you listen to our last press conference, essentially my message was, not the coronavirus one, but with the Mahonies and the Dardases, was essentially, I get it. You don't think masks work. I think they work. Every study I can pull up says they do. Every study you pull up says they don't. Just be nice to your neighbor and do the right thing. Because what we start doing is burying people with all the information, and they become either A, disinterested, or B, confused, or a combination of both. So I think simplifying the message and making it simply, and Governor Bergen's done a really good job of this, I think, is saying, let's just be grateful, let's help out our neighbor, put the politics aside and move on. Now, people aren't listening to that, right, as much as we'd like, but I think for the most part, I don't get out a ton in Fargo. I try to do my best to eat in off hours and be in post ops in off hours, but everywhere I've been, people are wearing masks. You know, be they younger, which is the demographic that generally speaking is getting all the cases that we have going through. It's the 20s to 40s. I see them wearing masks. So I don't know. I'm sort of babbling now, so I'll just stop. But essentially, I think that the information is out there if you're willing to dig, and I do think that we could do a better job maybe simplifying it. So I think we can take that to heart, Mr. Wilson, but broadly speaking, I think it's out there, and whether people pay attention or not is a different story. But anything further, Commissioner Sherlin?
I think that we could do a better job of getting that information out simply to folks, because it is, as you said, it's just confusing. And the better job we can do of being transparent, I think the more confidence the public will have in doing the right thing. One other quick question, because this did come up earlier too. What about test turnaround times? You know, the jail is pushing it, and I mean, it's full, and it makes it tough when you're isolating inmates and you don't have the results back for several days. So what can be done about that?
So a couple of things are taking place right now. First of all, we're looking at actually getting our own testing facility here in the east, rather than having to ship everything to Bismarck or to the west. So there's that. Obviously, there's technology that's improving by the day. We should be getting, broadly speaking, again. There's a company that is supposed to have, and we're doing side-by-side testing, where this test is I call it a pregnancy test, because I don't know what else to call it. You basically swab your mouth, within 15 minutes you get a positive or negative. And that positive or negative you can link to an app on your phone, and you can then use that as I just took this test 5 minutes ago and I'm clean or safe. And again, it's a moment in time snapshot, so it is, you know, what it is. But I think that's what we're gonna have to get to is, so let me back up. So first, we're getting testing capacity in the east soon. So we'll have that rather than having to mobilize everything, A, and then B, the technology is increasing, so we'll have an expedited ability to test. And the intent is they can make 50 million of these a month. And the intent is to have them sitting outside our long-term care centers. And once we get all the critical mass established, where you've got 100 million of these sitting around in people's closets, you could have the larger events. As you go to the event, you swab your cheek. If you're clean, you get to go in. If you're not, you get to go home. So I think that's the revolution that's going to get us out of the new normal. I hate that phrase, but to get us out of the new normal back to what will be after we vaccinate or get herd immunity will be that testing. So it's no longer a delay. It's a matter of, we have 500 of these tests at the jail. And maybe if I'm cutting to the chase on your question, Commissioner Sherling, we spoke on Wednesday last week at our weekly meeting, and I see Sheriff Johnner's hand is up again. But Cass Public Health was supposed to contact Sheriff Johnner to expedite for our first responders. They were doing it in the sort of phase a little bit, but they should be getting back into the expedition of expediting of these tests for our first responders. And that's not just Sheriff's Department. That should be for fire. That should be for Fargo PD, West Fargo PD, I guess federal marshals too. But my main concern was, obviously, selfishly speaking, was Sheriff Johnner. So
while we're waiting for that, can we use our local healthcare providers to get testing done for this critical area?
It's not the tests themselves, it's the processing of the test. That's the delay. So we can get the swabs all day long, we just can't get the results back fast enough.
But could we get them back quicker if we use our local healthcare?
No, because they're limited locally too. So Sanford, I think, sends everything to South Dakota. I'm not sure. Yeah, they do internally, but they send them to the lab in South Dakota. So the point is that we're able to expedite, or should be able to expedite, for our law enforcement as quickly as anybody. And again, we had that at one time, but Sheriff Johnner and I spoke maybe a week and a half ago, and that apparently has faded, and it should be getting back into the mix where we can have tests much sooner than dare I say the public at large.
I would just really encourage you to pursue that. Thank you.
Yep. Commissioner Sherling, anything else?
No, thanks. And thank you so much for all the time and effort you're putting into this. Really appreciate it.
Oh, no problem. Mr. Burdick and then Sheriff Johnner. Mr. Burdick, my friend, are you there? All right, Sheriff Johnner, if you would, please.
I actually did not have my hand up, Chad.
No, you did. I'm going to picture text you right now. Hold on. Don't you dare take that down. Oh, no, it's still up. Ha ha.
My hand is?
Yeah,
Okay.
you just text in a couple minutes, baby.
Well, I could certainly talk if you would like, but I appreciate Commissioner Sherling's press for us to get people back to work early, and I certainly appreciate your effort. So, yeah, anything we can do to get our test results back quicker definitely helps us out.
Yeah,
So.
well, the thing about all this is, you know, we're in an immediate crisis right now, and so something in 2 weeks or a month, well, you know, that might solve some problems then. I mean, we need faster response than that.
Yeah, and that's the test. So the current testing schedule will be accelerated, and that's what we're being told. I'm talking long-term for the pregnancy tests. But we were doing well, or our state friends were doing well, our state partners were doing well for us. But apparently, like I said, that's faded. Yeah, I sent you a text, Sheriff, of your hand up. So I actually did. So I think it's a good thing near term if they follow through with their word and help us accelerate back to where we were before. And if they don't, well, then we'll keep going up the chain of command. And the logic is, the way I presented it, just so everyone knows, the way I presented it to the state was simply, we don't have 500 requests a day coming from the Sheriff's Department. What we have is an oddity. We have 1 or 2 or 3 or 5 once in a while. And I don't see how that can be such a big strain on the system. Again, if we had 500 a day, I got you, we can't produce that many. But when our Sheriff's Department or Fargo PD or West Fargo PD has 3 or 5 people that are exposed, I struggle to believe our state can't expedite 5 tests. And again, it's not for me, it's not for you, it's not for Mr. Wilson, it's for our law enforcement officers. I think that's a reasonable request. And again, it seemed as though they didn't resist that. And then by the end of the call, not only state, but Fargo Cass Public Health told me directly, who do I contact? I directed them to Sheriff Johnner.
Well, the thing is we're on the verge of the entire Cass County incarceration system breaking down. We really are, because if we have an infection that runs rampant, you know, we don't have options. So we have to take advantage of every one of these little things to expedite each little piece so that we don't get to that point. So yes, if there's something that those of us should do to that end, we sure wish we knew what it was.
Yep. Again, every indication for our state partners is we have this support now.
Oh, good.
Mr. Chair, shall I continue?
Yes, please.
Okay, and before I move on, I certainly am very appreciative of the comments on the use of masks. I would like to have a follow-up conversation with Mr. Burdick about requiring masks of visitors and the interplay with courtrooms there. But I appreciate the feedback from commissioners, and I will look to further flesh out that question. But otherwise, we will be effective with the more stringent use of masks for employees beginning tomorrow.
And visitors.
Yes. With regard to remote working, one of the other things that I indicated to department heads that I was going to bring forward today and will encourage as a way to mediate the spread of the virus is to get as many employees working remotely as we possibly can. Obviously, we had a big push to do that back in March and April, and we were successful largely in getting a lot of people working remotely. We're really in a different position now with the number of cases. The challenge now is back in March and April when we originally did that, that was a large undertaking for IT to be able to manage the connectivity and the networking and connection needs to make that level of remote working possible. IT at this point is stretched thin with working to manage election needs. And so I don't believe I'm going to be able to have the IT resources immediately to push as many new users to remote status that would have IT needs. So the discussion with department heads has and will continue to be that if you've got anybody that can work remotely, that the connectivity, the connection to the various programs that they use can be essentially turnkey, please do that. We need employees to do that to the greatest extent possible. If it is new employees newly working remotely or is going to require a level of effort on an IT portion, that probably needs to wait until after election, but we will look to do that as quickly as possible. To that end, I think probably at our next meeting, Mr. Schmaltz may be proposing purchase of additional laptops and surfaces so that we can affect that move. But again, there's an element there of we only have so much IT hours, and we really need to be devoting those to election-related concerns at this moment. If there are no questions there, I'll move on to our final topic.
Please do.
Suballocation of CARES Act funds. We have received a formal request from the City of Horace for a suballocation of CARES Act funds in the amount of $97,752.13. This works out to 7 months of the monthly equivalent of their policing contract. Now, since we received this letter, Chair Peterson and I have had an opportunity to talk with the City of Horace, Mayor Peterson, and their city administrator. And I'd say that was a very good conversation. They were seeing it as a straight reimbursement for law enforcement expenses. And I think we're effective in saying that was simply a mechanism for distribution of funds. And that number one, if they have COVID-related expenses, mitigation expenses that they have and costs that they've incurred, we want to reimburse those costs because that is the purpose of these CARES funds and get us an accounting of those expenditures, and that would and we would certainly do that as be interested in participating as good partners in that. But it's not just a reimbursement, and the projects that we are looking at internally serve all of the county. They serve Argusville and Mapleton and Horace and rural areas. Things with our courtrooms and making our courtrooms so that they can accommodate hearings in a more socially distanced manner, as well as obviously the project in the jail that we know will have an impact because it would allow us to socially distance through the intake process. I think they understood that perspective. We agreed that we would just verify with our respective state associations because there was some question of what was being shared to the members from the various state associations. I've had an opportunity to follow up with Mr. Trainer this morning regarding that conversation, and I will look to follow up with the City of Horace folks shortly after that. But I think this is a discussion that will continue, and we had their request prior to being able to have that full conversation, and I think that conversation was productive, and so there's more collaboration on that front.
I think one point to add, Mr. Wilson, is I guess the important part is if we do it for one, we need to be prepared to do it for all. And I think that was sort of the bigger takeaway. And I'm fine buying, just me talking again as always, I'm fine buying the hand sanitizers and the basics to make sure these people have the PPE they need, meaning their city staff, because they have no means of distribution or accessing these funds otherwise. But reimbursement straight for law enforcement in excess of 90,000 or 100,000, whatever they wind up in, is 93, right?
97.
97.
Yeah, so about 100. I was pretty blunt, as I always am. Those of you that know me, I basically said no. Sorry, it's not meant for that. If not, someone's got to pay for my LAC, someone's got to pay for my courthouse, someone's got to pay for my jail. So what this was, as Mr. Wilson said, is means of distribution. So however this evolves, I think we'll keep the commission informed, and we eventually, the five of us, are going to have to figure out what we want to do. Because again, I think the important part is if we do it for one, we do it for all, and I don't think it's unreasonable. So that's anything else. Any questions for Mr. Wilson?
So do you need any action on this?
Not at all. Information.
No action at this time.
Mr. Wilson, anything else?
Mr. Chair, that concludes my report unless you have further questions for me.
Don't see we have any. Commissioners, no? See, Sheriff John, your hand's still up. Is that just to spite me, or do you actually want to talk? Both of them are adequate, by the way. I am fine with this part.
It must be stuck and not going down.
I'm so taking a video of this now. You're going to get a 10-minute video and the hand being up. Item 10 on our agenda, State Water Commission reimbursement. Mr. Montplaisir, if you're still around, I notice your hand's not up like my sheriff's, but I know you're still there.
Oh, yeah, I'm still here. This is to authorize the state or the city of Fargo to draw down $544,675.95, mostly concerned with the Second Street underpass or the Second Street flood protection projects. An item of note, though, I think at the last State Water Commission, our new executive director was able to negotiate getting more of our administrative costs reimbursed sooner rather than later. So I think we'll be getting a big windfall of money from the state appropriation that we have.
Commissioner Pollock, you're muted.
Okay, I'll try again. Mr. Chairman, I move to authorize the chair to sign reimbursement request 107 in the amount of $544,675.95 to the State Water Commission to distribute the funds to the Metro Flood Diversion Authority according to the terms and conditions of House Bill 1020.
For a second, please. Moving seconded. Any discussion? Any discussion? If not, roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Pollock,
Yes.
Peterson,
Yes.
Steen,
Yes.
Sherling,
Yes.
Brightling.
Yes.
Motion passes. Number 11, voucher approvals. I reviewed the vouchers. Look for someone to make a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move approval.
Thank you, and I'll second. Any discussion? If not, roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Brightling,
Yes.
Peterson,
Yes.
Steen,
Yes.
Pollock,
Yes.
Sherling,
Yes.
Standing motion passes. Committee reports, please. Let's start with Mr. Wilson.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, I'll be brief. Had a suggestion last week of, you may have seen a number of different businesses, organizations are getting the logoed face mask with their organization emblem. I'm checking into it. I'm reluctant to spend much money on that, but it's an intriguing idea. I'm going to be doing some checking on that. That concludes my report.
Great report. Any questions for Mr. Wilson? If not, Commissioner Brightling.
I have no committee report for this meeting.
Thank you, Commissioner Sherling.
Thank you. I've just got a number of various water-related boards coming up in the next 2 weeks. And then also wanted to mention that I think several of us were invited to some extension meetings. So Heather may need to consider noticing that. But other than that, I felt like we had a good conference. Would love to hear other people's input. for the North Dakota Association of Counties. If you have anything positive or negative, we're going to be having a board meeting coming up, and I would really appreciate any of your input. Thanks.
Would you like that input now, Commissioner, or some other time?
I would love that right now.
I think, this is just me talking, I think, obviously, for me, the most important one was, I believe, second day or first day, I can't even get my calendar straight, where we had the budget update, where we learned that we'll probably be receiving next to no funding for our highways. And I don't know if everyone on this virtual call is privy to that. So just to let you know, the way the buckets fill up for both this session and in theory next session, meaning not 1 year, 3 months, 4 months from now, but 2 years from now, within the prairie dog funding, those buckets will not fill up in 2 consecutive sessions. That leaves us with a $14 million plus or minus shortfall for road funding. Now I'm told through Terry Trainer, and Commissioner Sherling, jump into if you feel comfortable with this, or know more than I do. So I spoke to Terry Trainer, and the implication there is that he spent a better part of a day with Rich Wardner, which I actually believe, and there's supposed to be some dialogue regarding how we can get some shuffling of the quote-unquote buckets, so we can at least get something. I think we're looking at, I'm going from memory, and I actually got the presentation emailed to me again because I went through it again a day or two later. I want to say we're projected as a state, counties, as a state to get 30 million in lieu of 340 million. Commissioner Sherling, is that about right? Something like that, 240, 260. And we're going to wind up with 30, or maybe Commissioner Steen, I don't know if you know that, but the point is that it's 10% of what we're going to supposed to be allocated, meaning in the scheme of things, nothing. Yet the League of Cities, or the cities themselves, will be fully funded. I'm guaranteeing there's going to be hub money. I'm guaranteeing there's going to be not surge, remember surge 1 and 2. There'll be some sort of surge money for these hub cities. So I think that's what they're working through. And item 2, the presentation on, I think it was the last day, when we were all called a bunch of bigots and racists for an hour. That was hilarious. So I struggle with, and I sit on the Insurance Reserve Board, and we sponsored this person, and I'm fine, but I'm hoping the Insurance Reserve Board didn't fund them for very much. I'm shuddering to think, I bet we did. And that's we, not just this counties. This is everyone who pays. That's counties, cities, schools. But I did think it was fascinating, just so you know, the question that was asked, where's the none of the above question? Yeah, that was me. When he went through, okay, so how bad a racist are you? Pick these 5 names, Mr. or Mrs. Racist, because I know you're racists, super with your racism. You didn't give us the so I'm not racist selection. And he completely ignored that. And then he acknowledged it by saying, yeah, I'll get to that later. And then never acknowledged it because guess what? We're not racist. So it doesn't fit your model. It doesn't fit your racist and sexist theme. And I think it's okay to push back on these people, because if you don't, what they do is they just go, well, yeah, I had another great seminar up in, Sacramento, California, and you're all a bunch of racists, and they agreed. And then I had a seminar in, Boston, and we're a bunch of racists, and they agreed. And I went to Fargo, and they said the same thing. They're a bunch of racists, and everybody agreed. No, the narrative's false. Not everybody's racist. The disproportionate majority, 99.9999% of people are not. They don't care. I just don't believe it there. So, and I commented, I had left a long, I always use the word tirade, but that's not true. I left a long commentary saying, what a joke. I mean, if you're going to come here and say, we need to rethink because millennials tend to jump from job to job, and we talk about demographics and things like that, that's reasonable. You need to change your workforce based on your expectations, based on the new workforce dynamics. Not unreasonable. But to say, pick it, nah. So there's my commentary. I'm going to stop.
I think, that's always a challenge at these conferences, is the speakers, and that will definitely be something that we'll be talking about is, how well screened they are, and has anybody actually listened to them to see what the message is? Because, that happens every year. There's a topic that I'm just shaking my head at. And quite frankly, it always seems like the best speakers are often Cass County employees, or state, people that are experts in county government. And I get more out of that than anything usually. So anyway, well, thank you for that. Anyone else? All right.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Burdick?
No report, thank you.
Commissioner Pollock?
Very briefly, just want to bring to your attention, last, whatever day it was now, last Friday, there was a fatal accident at the intersection of Cass 17 and Cass 20. Someone ran through a red light or ran through a stop sign there and double fatality. But interestingly enough, there was the exact same accident happened 5 days before that, where someone ran the stop sign on a Sunday. 2 people went by air ambulance and 4 people went by ambulance, and it was just a terrible, terrible crash on that intersection, Cass 17 and Cass 20. I expect that we will see that one move to the top probably for a roundabout. But anyway, I just bring it to your attention if you weren't aware of that tragic accident at the intersection of 2 of our main county highways.
So does that need to have a 4-way stop put in the meantime?
No, because it's people who are blasting through it anyway. So I don't know. I don't see how that would be a solution. Maybe more flashing lights, but there already is a red light above the stop sign that flashes. I mean, maybe it could be more prominent. I'm sure Jason will have some ideas, but the people in the neighborhood have all really already accepted the fact that a roundabout is the way to resolve that. So now it's just a question of getting it funded.
Commissioner Pollock?
That's the end of my report. Yes, go ahead.
This is Sheriff Johnner. I did, just to let you know, I did respond to the crash that happened last Friday, and I was certainly aware of the one that happened the week prior before. So I have visited with Jason actually, and I just threw out some ideas to him on some potential things that we could do maybe to make it a little bit safer there in the meantime. He did mention a roundabout in the future, but of course, much like you said, that's not a quick fix. So he is aware of it, as Blaine is also aware of it, and we've just been kind of discussing it back and forth to see if we can somehow make it safer in the meantime.
One of the things that I do notice on that one is the sign that says Fargo National Cemetery and with the arrow straight ahead. It's positioned between the stop sign and the advanced warning of a stop sign, and it actually blocks the stop sign until you get fairly close to the stop sign itself. And so that may be something that could or should be repositioned, but I'll mention that to Jason.
Yeah, I mentioned that to him and actually moving it to the west side of 17. And then also a couple of the other ideas was just simply, much like you said, making the stop sign a little bit more visible by maybe some more lighting, and then also the strips that are cut in the road to alert that an intersection is coming up. Just kind of looking at those again to make sure that those were enough.
Yeah, well, they're there. I mean, the poor fella, he ran right through it all.
Yeah.
Commissioner Pollock, anything further?
That's the end of my report.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Steen?
A short report. Last Thursday, we had a West Central Regional Juvenile Center board meeting. Really no significant items there. Everything's on track. And then last Friday, had the Fargo Cass County Board of Health meeting, which I think the result of which was a letter sent to Fargo, West Fargo, Cass County. I think Heather has in her possession, if I'm not mistaken, or somebody has it. But I have a question for you, Mr. Chairman, and it just struck me this today. We asked for public comment at the beginning of the meeting for something that's not on the agenda. But then we got the agenda and you indicated to the person, well, we really don't have a public comment for that.
Public hearing, he called it.
So, I mean, I was confused. Why did we do that then?
Well, here's the thing with him regarding that is he engaged heavily. So lots of emails, phone calls, and could I have just said no? Yes. Should I have just said no? Maybe. But I didn't feel compelled to just.
And if they don't speak at the public comment period.
Oh, that's something not on the agenda though.
But this wasn't something not on the agenda.
Yep, so he would then speak when it's on the agenda. So really, what I should have done, or what we should have done, was had a public hearing for it. But the logic is, and this is what Heather, Ms. Warden, and Mr. Benson and I spoke about prior, we've had 5 years of hearings. But again, he was so engaged, I just felt compelled to give him a voice.
Now, I didn't have any problem listening to him. I was just confused once I heard that. Well, if it's not on the agenda, we can talk. If it's on the agenda, we don't want to hear from you. I get it, because we're going to have to get to the agenda. Okay.
And that's
Seems very odd to me.
Could you have a public hearing, I suppose, but I tried to make it clear to him saying, you know, we've been talking about this for 6 years, excuse me, 6 years. And I'm sorry, truly, I'm sorry he missed it, but dude.
And I'm not sure,
6 years.
I'm not sure, Chad, from what, he had his hand up. He didn't look like he was happy after what we did. So I don't know.
No, because it wasn't his area of road, right? So he wasn't talking about the north-south. He was talking more towards Mapleton.
Oh.
And that's
why, okay.
Yep, so it is what it is, but I wanted to make sure he had a chance to speak.
Right.
And again, you can be critical and you not be wrong, but that's why I did it.
Still confused then. So what do we tell them if you have something you want to speak about that's not on the agenda?
Yeah.
You want to talk about something that's on the agenda, don't talk.
It's the prerogative of the people running the meeting.
I get, no, and it'd be very confusing for someone who wants to come and talk to the commission. If you have something not on the agenda, feel free to talk. That gives them the impression that if it's on the agenda, then they can talk when it's on the agenda.
Yep, and like I said, if you're, for as much interaction as we have, yeah, come and talk. That'd be awesome. I mean, you know, when we have 75 people show up, then we can have the dialogue regarding limiting that, but the reality is, if anybody shows up, I want them to talk. All right. Especially, I think you got a copy of his email.
Oh, yeah, I got it. Yeah, I read it.
There was more before that.
And he called too.
And then a phone call. And I somehow cut my hand. Awesome. Okay, Commissioner Steen, anything further?
That was it.
That's awesome. Mr. Montplaisir, look at that. Seriously. Mr. Montplaisir, any thoughts? Or are you good?
I don't think he's on anymore.
Mr. Chair, I think, he had to go up.
Going on.
Okay, then me, my phone is dead, and I just have a bunch of different meetings, and we're all gonna go to meetings and have meetings, so that's my report.
Some meetings we're not gonna have.
Correct, correspondence,
Some meetings we're gonna do
virtually.
Now, correspondence received as of October 19th, 2020. Notice of filing a public hearing from the Public Service Commission regarding an application from New Star Pipeline Operating Partnership for a certificate of corridor compatibility and route permit for a refined petroleum products pipeline, approximately 2.21 miles in length, located in Cass County, North Dakota.
Move to receive and file.
Second, please. Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. All right, last one.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, and adjourn. Again, thank you for your patience. See you virtually off and on throughout the week.
Thank you,
All right.
Commissioners.
Thank you. Goodbye, everybody.
Aye.